It is 9:59. Good morning. I'm Lucas Panzica, live from Greystone Golf Club in Dixon at the Zone Golf Classic. The Titans are back on the practice field for minicamp, or were back on the field for minicamp. Yesterday, head coach Brian Callahan met with the media post-practice and discussed the transition that J.C. Latham is making from right tackle in college to left tackle in the NFL.
There's things you can pick up. I think there's a movement and a mental component that you feel like as you watch it that feels good. Does he know what to do, where to go? Those things are the first things, and then you see the technique start to come along, and everything I've seen so far has been really pretty dang good for a guy making that transition for the first time playing on the left side in a while. And again, a lot more will be revealed as we get going, but everything would indicate so far that he's up to the task.
Game one of the NBA Finals was yesterday. The Boston Celtics dominating the Dallas Mavericks at TD Garden, a final score of 107-89. Jaylen Brown led the way with 22 points for Boston. Kristaps Porzingis adding 20 off the bench in his return from injury. College baseball, Tennessee kicks off their super regional weekend at home against Evansville, starting with a 2 p.m. first pitch this afternoon. Tomorrow, Game 2 will start at 10 a.m. You can hear that one live right here on 104.5 The Zone, courtesy of the Vol Network. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Good morning. Welcome into 104.5 The Zone. We're live today from the 2024 Zone Golf Classic presented by Ferguson and State Water Heaters. Greystone Golf Club, always good enough to host us. We got Lucas. For some reason, Bert is here. Kirby, the rest of the crew. 615-737-1045. That's the number. You can jump in at any point if you want to. I don't think that we could have gotten a better day for this. I know it was postponed. No, people had to wait a little bit, but the setup is excellent. Greystone, always a great course to be able to play, and the weather, phenomenal for this, for CMA Fest, for whatever you want to do this weekend. Morale is high on a Friday. Titans minicamp concluded yesterday. Much of a game last night.
Jackson says he lost you.
Uh-oh. Did you lose me?
Just for a second. You got me now?
Yeah. Good morning, buddy.
Morning.
How are you?
Well, scared right now, but
enjoying this beautiful day in the control room dungeon at the 104.5 The Zone building.
This is always the fun part of remotes. Jackson is back at the studio. We're out here in Dixon, broadcasting live all 4 shows. Special thanks to Southern Trophy House for providing awards and apparel. Special thanks to beverage sponsors today, Milagro Tequila and Hendrick's Gin. So anytime we do the remotes, Jackson is back in the studio. So talking about the beautiful environment that we have to broadcast from today. Jackson is back there very scared because he can't see us. He can barely hear us half the time, but we're going to make it work anyway. No more minicamp. We have one more day of open availability for the Tennessee Titans before things go dark for 6 weeks. And of all the things that were talked about after the second day of practice with Will Levis and his struggles in the 7-on-7 period, and I think that with Kirby, don't wave like that at me violently while I'm broadcasting about donuts.
It has nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with you.
He's waving his arms frantically.
Who's interrupting the show here? Who's interrupting the show? Kirby, who didn't say a word, who did not say he's communicating with me, or you, who halts everything because of something Kirby didn't say.
Because Jackson just told us that we were off the air for 5 minutes, and then all of a sudden Kirby is waving his arms frantically at me. What do you want me to think? All right? I'm scared. Now I'm scared.
Oftentimes when you say morale is high,
I wanted to know why he didn't bring donuts.
My mood was so much better before I sat down around you two. I swear to God, I was in such a good mood driving out here. It's beautiful out in Dixon. Greystone is always great, and you had to ruin my Friday vibe. You had to do it.
No, you know what you are? You're the boy who cried wolf.
Unbelievable.
Because you think people will adjust to you when you whine about things, but it becomes so easy to tune out because it happens every show, every day. So it's just Buck being Buck, and everybody's going to continue on.
Who is that moron? If it happens every day, who is that moron? The person complaining about the things that are wrong or the people doing the things wrong?
Did you read The Boy Who Cried Wolf? Do you know that story? That parable? Is it a fable?
Is it a parable?
I don't know.
What kind of words are you using?
Who wrote The Boy Who? Is that an Aesop thing?
I'm in danger.
Yeah, good morning. Happy Friday. Welcome in. So now it feels more like the show.
Yeah, that's Aesop. That's Aesop.
Do you want to talk about Titans minicamp or not?
Yep, wrapped up yesterday.
Okay.
7-on-7 action.
Sure did. They had a little bit of 7-on-7 action. There was a lot of walkthrough, a lot of situational football towards the second half of practice. And we did see L'Jarius Sneed out there walking through things in practice, but not going through the individual stuff and, the stuff that you want to see. Now, the biggest headline out of all the different things that we've been talking about this week is probably what? It's probably the fact that T'Vondre Sweat hasn't been out there doing things in front of media at an open practice since rookie minicamp. And that's been close to a month at this point. And while that doesn't mean that it's the end of the world, he's a second-round pick who's coming in with a lot of scrutiny and whose every movement or non-movement is going to be, I think, hyper-analyzed, particularly at this time of year where it's a pretty slow news cycle. We're going to talk to Blaine Bishop about how seriously you should take some of this stuff, or what his perspective as a player is, because I don't want to speak on it one-sidedly as media looking at somebody who we know comes in with some stuff as a second-round pick who is going to be talked about anyway, and the availability at the start of this thing, provided that he continues to work in the facility and he's been there at mandatory minicamps. It's not like he's been absent. It's always going to be a talking point, it feels like, as long as T'Vondre Sweat is not out on the field.
Because all is well with the rest of the draft class, right? J.C. Latham, he's impressive at the podium, and we're kind of getting updates on that transition as much as you can with no pads.
He's
with
giving
no
away
live
the
reps.
playbook. He's giving away the playbook already.
Yeah, that's right. He wants to get out in space. Every other draft pick is out there, bare minimum, and T'Vondre Sweat's really the only question mark, just in terms of, okay, where's he at?
It's just the only thing to wonder about really right now. Like we've talked about, there's not a lot of things to kind of nitpick at this time of year, nor do you have to take this overwhelmingly seriously, because we asked Callahan about it on, Tuesday. His response was, yeah, this is about the timeline that we were expecting. He kind of ballparked it a couple of weeks, right? And then he said no later than training camp would he be available, probably next week, and they still have OTA off-season program work next week before everybody breaks for the summer. So again, is it the end of the world? No. Is it a notable headline on a 3-day period that's basically just an expanded portion of OTAs? The only other big thing that happened yesterday at practice is Easton Freeze dropped a pass from Will Levis, one of the media people, off to the sideline, hit him right in the chest.
I heard.
Whole football team booed him.
Oh, no.
It was brutal.
No.
I mean,
but he redeemed himself, right?
He did. This is the part, okay? So they're working on a play where basically the quarterbacks are trying to throw it out of bounds, which is where the media is standing off to the sideline at St. Thomas Sports Park. I think they also had some season ticket holders or some other people, VIPs, quote unquote, that were there for practice yesterday. And so everybody's on that sideline where the quarterbacks are throwing it out of bounds, which is where the Levis pass goes, and it hits Easton right in the chest, and he drops it. Boo! The whole thing. And then Malik gets back there, throws the pass out of bounds. Easton hops to body catch it with both hands to try and cradle it. Probably hit him in the sternum, probably knocked the wind out of him. But damned if he didn't catch it, and everybody cheered. Everybody applauded. It would honestly have been more humiliating to drop the second pass when it went in that direction, but he stepped up in a big spot. It was a clutch performance. But again, that was the highlight of yesterday's mandatory minicamp.
I'm envious of Easton because he got a chance at redemption, which I did not get after I botched the Brett Kern punt. Was it not last fall, but the fall before last?
2 training camps ago. 2 Augusts ago, because Kern and his son, one of his kids was out there.
No, it was last fall because
No.
Kern was cut last fall, right? He was part of Titans training camp last fall.
No, it's been 2 off seasons since Brett Kern was on the team.
Man. time is a flat circle.
Thanks for that. But anyway, so mandatory minicamp concludes. And, you want to do a little like sports talk radio winners and losers? Do you feel like doing that? Because I think you'd probably put just by default loser Sweat on the list, not for any reason, but he's not been out there. J.C. Latham, I think from a profile standpoint, it's been a while since, I don't know, we've talked about the atmosphere, the vibe check and stuff like that. I would say that there's a pretty significant winner as far as the coaching staff and at least the early phases of the work that they're trying to get in. Everybody seems to be handling it pretty well. We'll see what happens when we get to training camp because it's a totally different grind. And then once the season begins, you'll have to manage the ebbs and flows of that. But for the most part, it's been pretty smooth sailing for a lot of these different players. And in particular, the new faces who are going to have to contribute right away, which is what kind of brings that extra scrutiny to Sweat because Tavondre Sweat is a player in the same way we talk about the reps that NPF is missing to his detriment right now with Bill Callahan, right? They probably need Sweat to start right away. Sebastian Joseph Day is a starting caliber player. He's been an average, he's been a team captain in previous spots. So
but for this defense to be productive, a productive pass rush, they've talked about the importance of the interior. It has to be more than just Jeff. And we can't gloss over 11 and a half sacks that went out the door when Danico Autry went to Houston.
Sure. So I'm just trying not to insult Sebastian Joseph Day because he is a starting player. But again, Tavondre Sweat makes a huge difference here because beyond that, TK McClendon, Marlon Davidson, it's not Keandre Coburn, who we've talked about, the former Texas player.
Sweat's teammate.
Rotational players who will matter and who will play snaps, of course, but you still need that frontline juice, basically. And to have Sweat ready to go by the start of the season, by the time this team plays a rookie quarterback in week 1 at Chicago in a big spot with a lot of people who are going to be watching, I think it's not insignificant to talk about the time that Tavondre Sweat and Nicholas Petit-Frere and guys who were unavailable for a bunch of different reasons missing the last 3 days. 615-737-1045 is the number. Again, we are broadcasting live today at the 1045 The Zone 2024 Golf Classic presented by Ferguson and State Water Heaters. Greystone Golf Club, always good to host us. Special thanks to the great people at Two Rivers Ford, RTM Roofing, Dickens Turf and Landscape Supply, and so many others that make this day possible. We are going to get into a bunch of other things. We got a loaded show today. We've got Peter Skoronsky on the show today. Coach Dave McGinnis is also going to get into minicamp stuff, so stick around. We're talking a lot of Titans this morning on 104.5 The Zone. So many people trust Two Rivers Ford. Football players, working moms, business owners. Why? Because Two Rivers Ford has been doing business with integrity for decades. Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer.
You're live.
Welcome back here live at Greystone Golf Club, the 104.5 The Zone 2024 Golf Classic presented by Ferguson and State Water Heaters. We've got, did you get some Whataburger breakfast? Did you get here in time for that?
Robert hoarded a Hub Chub for me.
I'm sorry, a what?
A honey butter chicken biscuit. And that is true friendship. Robert warded off people looking to pick up the scraps of the honey butter chicken biscuits because they go quick, because they are amazing. And I got one as soon as I walked in.
Well, special thanks to Whataburger for providing breakfast. Uncle Bud's, I was following them in. They've got lunch today, and Famous Dave's for dinner. 615-737-1045 is the number if you want to join the conversation at any point on this Friday. We would be happy to have you. So talking about the end of mandatory minicamp yesterday and the idea of experimenting. This is something that Brian Callahan talked about. There's a couple of different levels to this, right? And I think, I don't know, do you feel like we have a version of this conversation every year where we have to remind people that, hey, when you see the quarterbacks charted in Jimmy Wyatt's TennesseeTitans.com observations, it's notable on a day that he goes 1 for 4 or whatever, but it's not the end of the world because you have the completions or the lack thereof without necessarily the full context of what was Brian Callahan trying to get done that day and how much of this period of early offseason program into training camp is that kind of experimentation from a coaching staff. What works, what doesn't, with a lot of new pieces and players that they're trying to figure out the best usage for as well in 2 new schemes for everybody. So
this is something we should have talked about yesterday when we based the whole show around Will Levis having his worst practice of the offseason.
Yeah, but I had a whole nother day of sports talk radio to do, so that wasn't...
You have to scare the people and then bring them back to earth.
Thank you. We've been doing media for a while. I feel like you would be on the same page at this point.
Panic about your quarterback. No, it's no big deal.
Yeah, sports. That's how we do this. Okay, anyway, so Brian Callahan talking about the idea of experimenting during the offseason program.
Period for quarterbacks. It's, there's no consequence, and sometimes you use those reps to find out what you can get away with. I encourage those quarterbacks to maybe not necessarily check the ball down every time in 7-on-7. Test your throws. Test the throw into a tight coverage. Test it into a tight window, and then we can coach off the decision making. But sometimes there is a place for a little bit of experimentation and trying to see what you can and can't get away with in a live motion period. They're allowed to have some freedom to try some throws, and we coach off of it. And you can say, look, we know that you'd probably get to the back here in a real game, or you check the ball down here, but we don't mind an aggressive approach sometimes in 7-on-7.
That's Brian Callahan talking yesterday about the idea of experimenting specific to the quarterbacks during the offseason program. So we've scared them. Now everybody feels better, right? It was a pretty smooth week of work at mandatory minicamp. So, you're looking for those moments when they struggle. And again, we're talking about the way that they responded. They didn't do as much like full speed 7-on-7 work as they have done the past 2 previous days. Again, they had a more situational football approach. It was a little more walk-through pace for the better half of practice. But on the whole, Will Levis managed the situation well, and that's the kind of mental makeup stuff that it's okay to look for day to day. You want to see how he handles the day-to-day grind as we get closer to the actual grind that is the football season.
He's the only player that we truly, not the coaching staff or the people in the building, but the one we truly are able to evaluate with any measure, right? It's the quarterbacks or the receivers if they're dropping balls or whatever. But we can't come out here after a day of minicamp and say, man, Arden Key had a tough time today, right? Or J.C. Latham, really. It's some technique stuff, and I know Latham talked about a couple moments where, he let some guys get inside because of a certain technique that works in college that doesn't work at this level. But ultimately, when it's 7-on-7s, the thing that we can evaluate most is quarterback and receivers. And I think that's the group that probably stands to benefit most from this period in terms of just getting that rhythm down and the timing and communication of how a certain guy runs a route for Will Levis, especially with new receivers in the building. But we're going to be so hyper-focused on Levis in this period because we can chart, okay, he went 3 for 8 yesterday, and then he went 5 for 7 today, or whatever it is. We can't do that with most other positions. So we are going to hyper-analyze this stuff anyway without really knowing the true context of the situations they're trying to put Levis in these settings with no pads and no contact taking place.
I think that's okay. It's the most important position. If there's more dialogue about it, I think that's okay from the day-to-day standpoint. Now, I will say that in any other year, I would be more inclined to agree with you about all the different nuances. And I'm not saying that I'm learning so much that I feel like I could articulate everything that Bill Callahan is doing with the offensive line group. But I feel like I've watched them enough, and you'll hear from Peter Skoronsky because part of the conversation I asked him about, I don't think I've ever seen a position group more collectively give a sigh of relief than when you guys are done with the individual sleds, Olga and Bertha. And he goes, hey, we do a lot of other drills too. And then he walks us through all the other drills that they do and the specific points that they're trying to accomplish. So in this specific year with this specific offensive line coach and all the discussion around Tennessee Titans, how can they put the group back together after what a nightmare scenario the last 2 seasons have been, I do feel like I have at least a more nuanced understanding of what each drill is supposed to accomplish from a 1,000-foot view without all of the intricate details, the hand fighting techniques, all the other things, the footwork that they are tasked with knowing that encapsulates the entirety of the position.
Yeah, and same goes for the players, right? I mean, install at this point is pretty much over. Nick Holt said, I think, 2 days ago that they're at the point where they're going over it kind of a third time, refining certain things, aspects of the offense that they're putting in. So it's a different challenge for Brian Callahan and this coaching staff as opposed to, I don't know, look around the league and look up to Shane Steichen in Indy or any coach going into a second, third, or fourth year where you're having to install and then refine those points and all at the same time integrate a rookie in arguably the most, second or third most important position on the offense at left tackle. There's a lot of moving parts throughout minicamp. So just like you're kind of waiting to the end of minicamp to see what you can take away from certain drills in terms of what they're trying to accomplish, feels like that growing process is there for players too. How much was J.C. Latham able to move Olga or Bertha at the beginning of minicamp?
Hardly at all.
Yeah. So at this point, what do you say, that they're his best friends yesterday?
Those are his buddies.
So maybe that's a product too of everything so new and fresh at the beginning that even the most incremental improvements in certain areas are going to look like big improvements for us because we could see it. It's concrete. It's tangible. J.C. Latham couldn't move this thing at the beginning of camp or minicamp, and now he's calling them his best friends, and he seems pretty acclimated, whereas they probably still have a pretty long way to go. Like, how many more tweaks have to be made when they're actually out there 11 on 11 with pads and helmets on and everything?
The other part of this that is interesting, so the idea of experimenting, right? We talked about there was big headlines early in the week about Traylon Burks, more specifically, and as a side note, Caleb Farley, and their role on special teams, how they're looking at both of them as gunners. Traylon is the fourth wide receiver now. Farley generously as cornerback 5, maybe. I think a lot of us are looking at Jarvis Brownlee as the 4 right now if you were to stack them in any particular order, and you'll have to do the roster math as we get closer and closer to the start of the regular season. But Caleb Farley yesterday, did you happen to catch any of his comments? And some of the details that he skirted around specific to the nerve situation that he's experiencing. Remember that he did not play a snap of football last year. He was on the PUP, the physically unable to perform list, the entire time. Now, we've talked before about his back procedure and the disc situation that he had coming out of college. He had a procedure, he had a cleanup. He had a torn ACL. He tore another ACL once he got to the pros, and again, he was having a situation with his back that was causing a nerve issue. So he said something yesterday about us just not understanding how big it was for him to be out there running around at practice without pads on. And it's one thing to talk about how much time he's missed, but to hear it from, we haven't heard from him a whole lot, because if he's not playing all year, I mean, sure as hell he's not going to be available all year. I think the first time that he gave any kind of public commentary outside of the offseason program was locker room clean-out day with Caleb Farley. And I think at some point when of course, the tragedy of what happened with his father at their home in North Carolina, I think that there was a moment when he was approached for comment about that at whatever point he was comfortable talking about that, if at any point you're ever really comfortable losing a loved one that way. So for the level of seriousness that Caleb Farley was talking about it yesterday, I don't know, it hit me different, where we're looking at a dude who is focused on the opportunity in front of him. He kept saying that he didn't want to get into detail about the specifics of the injury, but he's just trying to flush it, and that the thing that he wanted most, well, hell, I'll shut up and let you hear from Caleb Farley himself.
Coming along from that perspective. Man, I'm just so grateful. I've been feeling extremely grateful. I don't think you guys understand. I really, truly believe I would never play football again. And just to be out here, be running around and practicing, I'm so grateful. Glory be to Jesus Christ and my Lord and Savior and Father God, because like I said, I'm just grateful and happy to be out here. I'm telling you, man. God has been there to nudge me along in some very, very low and dark moments this past year and a couple years, just with my foot. And well, that don't even matter. Just I'm grateful to be here practicing, and I have the mentality to look ahead and see opportunity in front of me, and anything can happen, and I know that to be true, and I believe that wholeheartedly. So ready to come to training camp, not to participate, to come compete. And,
So, Caleb, you were talking about your back last year, and specifically, like, you didn't really know at that point what it was going to be, but you feel like that has come along, and you feel okay with everything that's going on with that?
Yeah, you know, I lace up my cleats and come out here and practice, and I'm full go. So, I mean, I don't really want to dive into it because I'm trying to flush it and always trying to flush it. And speaking of that, shout out to Chidobe because, man, he has been a guy that has helped me in some of my thinking, kind of even raised me above and past and beyond, and pushed me some stuff that could be maybe mentally holding me back. So shout out to Cheeto for that. I think he deserves to get some recognition for what he's done, you know, behind the scenes.
So that's Caleb Farley. Now, later on, he's continued to be asked about the injury stuff for obvious reasons. You know, you don't want to press him. You want to be sensitive to the situation because this is a dude who's been through a ton at this point in his career. The idea that he's already in year 4, he's talking about being in a contract year. Guy's been in 12 football games. I think he started maybe 2 as a former first-round pick, and that he is treating just the idea of an OTA or a mandatory minicamp practice as, miraculous is the way that he's describing it. And he's, you know, obviously very grounded in his faith and runs a lot of his life and perspective through that prism, which, you know, to him is incredibly important. You can tell, and you have to be able to have something you can put faith in, I'm sure, if you go through the amount of tragedy and personal loss that Caleb Farley has off the field. But even still, the idea of experimenting with the two of them, the former first-round picks, Treylon Burks and Caleb Farley, has also been a big talking point of this offseason.
As pressing as this year is for Treylon Burks in terms of the pressure that's on him now that he's a little further down the depth chart and maybe the opportunity will be less for him to show that there is a future for him here as a first-round pick, that ante is even raised for Farley, who's going into the last year of his contract, who, like Burks, is in a room where it is greatly improved around him, and he is further down in the depth chart than he has ever been. And that's saying something because Farley has had opportunity after opportunity, and now he's in a situation where he's surrounded by vets, right? Either vets or established starters. Roger McCreary is a third-year player. He's not this veteran presence, but he is an established starter on this defense. Chido Awuzie is a veteran. L'Jarius Sneed is a veteran that they brought in with high investment. And then where does Farley stack up beyond those 3 guys? Like, how far down do we get before we start to consider Caleb Farley in that cornerback competition? Like, how much work does he have ahead of him? Because we talk about that all the time with Burks. How much work does he have ahead of him to make any sort of impact in this wide receiver room? And like Burks, Farley probably will have to do that on special teams as well. But I don't know, are we putting Farley back as a returner on special teams? I feel like Burks stands to gain more from earning that special teams role if he is a kick returner or a candidate for a kick returner. But how far down in that cornerback pecking order do we go before we start to consider Caleb Farley as someone that can help this team, understanding that the health part has to be there, that he has to be on the field come training camp?
Honest to God, it's him and Trey Avery. Like, I think you go Sneed in whatever order you would stack. I mean, there's an obvious order with the 3, but Sneed, Awuzie, McCreary, and Jarvis Brownlee Jr., who's the 5th-round pick out of Louisville, who, you know, comes in as basically a backup nickel. We'll see. I think he's a good enough player that somebody like Denard Wilson will find a way to get him on the field. Trey Avery has played a lot of football. He's played considerably more football than Caleb Farley has. And I know that sounds blasphemous and offensive, and Titans fans, it should piss Titans fans off to understand how wrong those last couple first rounds of John Robinson's tenure, those last 3 rounds of first rounds of John Robinson's tenure actually went with Isaiah Wilson in 2020, Caleb Farley in 2021, and now Treylon Burks in 2022, which are just still the biggest talking point. To your point of discussion about the special teams and the returning, Caleb Farley's not going to be a returner, though he was a wide receiver before he converted. And I don't know. I wouldn't rule him out. He's supposed to be a pretty high-level athlete. Now, the thing that kind of shocked me is later on in that media scrum session, he's talking about the idea of, you know, will I ever be the same kind of athlete that I was coming out of the college? The thing that made him intriguing as a first-round pick because of the athletic upside. He basically said, no, I don't think that. And he was also talking about his foot. I don't know if that's connected to the nerve situation from his back, but he did make a reference to his foot. That's the first time I've ever heard any kind of foot injury discussion or any kind of issue with Caleb Farley. I think he may have let that one slip because I know he's been dealing with a lot of stuff, and it probably all just compiles. But I still think that he's a candidate on special teams to play gunner, so it's him and Trey Avery gutting it out for special teams cornerback spot, because that's what your fifth corner is. And he's probably not better than their fifth corner right now, or at least he's not able to help them more than the other four guys that they have currently brought in via trade and free agency and the NFL draft. They addressed it in all three phases of the offseason, the cornerback. So they're clearly telling you something about what this team needs and the amount of explosive plays that were allowed. And we've played the clip about Denard Wilson talking about how they're going to press at the line of scrimmage now and basically rough receivers up in a way that Titans fans have been dying for. What did we say, since 2020? 4 seasons at this point with the Titans defensive backs playing 5 yards off the line of scrimmage.
I mean, how many teams rebuilding a position room have a former first-round pick buried in the depth chart as a result of that rebuild? And the Titans have two.
There's probably a few.
Right?
It's that they have stacked up 3 consecutive objectively bad drafts that we're talking about this, and that the most important or the most scrutinized pick in every first round of those drafts have gone, pretty terribly wrong for 3 very different reasons.
Yeah, exactly.
Very different reasons.
You almost hate to even include Farley in that conversation with Wilson.
No, you
have
shouldn't
to
include Burks in that conversation with Wilson because their circumstances are not the same. And that's important to remember.
But the results, unfortunately, have been...
When it builds up and your football team goes 7-10 and 6-11, fans don't care about the nuances of why the first-round picks aren't performing. They just care that they had 3 straight drafts that got the general manager fired.
Yeah, and you talk about a guy in Isaiah Wilson that did nothing to help his own situation versus a guy like Caleb Farley that has had everything around him pull him back from being able to contribute. I don't know if there's anyone, Kevin, on the F&M Bank chat, says Farley is absolutely one guy I want to see succeed. Is there any single player easier to root for individual success on this team than Caleb Farley?
Probably not. There's nobody. I don't know how many people in the world have had the level of personal tragedy that they have had to overcome and are focused on overcoming it that Caleb Farley has. He's got a locket that he wears around his neck with his mom and his dad on it, and both of them passed away for, again, different reasons at 2 different times, but still to lose. What is he? Is he 20? Is he 22? Is he 23? Caleb Farley? To have that again, and the way that his father passed is just, with that explosion in North Carolina I believe it was last August. I can't even begin to imagine. So no, there is not an easier story to root for than that of Caleb Farley, especially for the way that he continues to embrace and try to make the best of it. Because I can't imagine that that's been easy for him over the course of the last couple of years. 615-737-1045 is the number. We're broadcasting live from the annual Golf Classic here at Greystone Golf Club. Special thanks to Roy Matlock Jr., Mark Spain Real Estate, King and Associates, as well as Brentwood Hearing, and so many others that make this fun day possible. You got an SEC stat of the day for me?
I sure do. Super Regional start today against your Evansville Purple Aces in about 3.5 hours.
I didn't wear my Villains shirt today.
Oh, switching up, I see.
What does that mean? We'll talk about it next. Are you not able to enjoy the summer as much as you want because of joint pain? It's the best time for being outdoors, but not if your knees, shoulders, backs, or hips are hurting. Like if you wanted to play in this great golf tournament today, it's hard to do if your joint pain is an issue. QC Kinetics is here to remind you that you don't need to suffer any longer. Non-surgical joint pain relief is here, so you should call QC Kinetics today. The nation's leader in regenerative medicine with no surgery, no drugs, and no downtime. QC Kinetics advanced treatments harness your own body's ability to restore and repair damaged joint tissue so you can walk, run, hike, play golf, and move again pain-free. Their advanced protocols have enabled tens of thousands of patients to reclaim their mobility. So stop putting it off and take action now. live your best life again in 2024. Call QC Kinetics now for a free consultation at 615-249-4024. That's 615-249-4024.
Let's talk Super Regionals. Tennessee hosts Evansville first
You know
pitch.
how mad it made me, the amount of people that were bouncing around to that song in here?
The fact that your show brings joy to even the 4 people in this room, I'm sure, just gets in your craw.
That thing in particular, that monstrosity. Talk to me about the baseball.
2 p.m. is the first pitch. 3HL will be keeping you updated today. We will carry the Vol Network broadcast tomorrow at 10 a.m. And
so they're scared of Evansville. They're scared to broadcast the game. Scared of the Purple Aces.
The if necessary, probably not necessary, 5 p.m. first pitch for Game 3 on Sunday would also hypothetically be on 104.5 The Zone. If it happens, we'll see if Tennessee can't take care of business and go ahead and sweep this Cinderella story that is the Evansville Purple Aces in the Super Regionals. It is a cool story. I'm not going to lie to you. For a program like Evansville at the expense of Robert Walsh's ECU Pirates, now they are no stranger to hostile environments. Greenville is that. So ECU, I don't think will be intimidated coming into Knoxville. It will be a rocking Lindsey Nelson Stadium. Tony Vitello has made comments. He was on with 3HL yesterday, actually, and we'll play a piece of that here in a second, but he's made comments about it basically being a football Saturday. The only difference is he can't enjoy it like he typically does a football Saturday in Knoxville. That's going to be the vibes tomorrow. But first, 2 p.m. first pitch today in East Tennessee. So the SEC stat of the day is 159 because Tennessee leads the nation with 159 home runs so far this season. Quick shout out to Austin Peay, by the way, who is second in the nation in home runs. Compare that to the 2022 Tennessee team. The last time the Vols were the number 1 overall seed and had that electric offense, that boisterous personality, right? That incredibly deep pitching staff. That Tennessee team, by the end of the season, eliminated in the Super Regionals in 3 games against Notre Dame. So Super Regionals included, that Tennessee team led the nation with 158 home runs. So this Tennessee offense is already better than what that Tennessee accomplished in 2022 going into Super Regionals. Christian Moore, obviously a big part of that. Triple Crown, somehow doesn't win SEC Player of the Year. That's besides the point. One of the best hitters in program history. So it's interesting to think about this Tennessee team and comparing it to that 2022 team. And the obvious difference that sticks out the most when you watch, we can go through the pitching staffs, and 2022, much, much better, much, much deeper in that regard, more MLB draft picks. I think you have 3 quality starters with this pitching staff and some depth in the bullpen that proved itself, especially in Hoover, but just not to the extent of that 2022 side. But the point is, the big difference, it feels like, is the personality. Right, is the bat flipping and the middle fingers, and they still have the daddy hat and the fur coat.
I loved that team so much. So much. That will always have a special place in my heart because of how much it was so fun, even if I'm just bandwagoning, right, as a part of the whole Tennessee baseball bit, because I legitimately root for Tennessee baseball, and except when they played in Indiana, and then you had to tell me that they lost 12-6 on the day that I was not paying attention to the Tennessee-Indiana game. But it's so much fun, I think, if you can be a part of a fan base that everybody else in the country hates. Like watching how much the Boston Celtics fans enjoyed last night in Game 1, just smoking the Dallas Mavericks in Boston in front of a very entitled group of fans that's accustomed to winning, hasn't won a title since 2008, but still thinks that they deserve to be in every conversation. I loved getting a little bit of that from Tennessee because the country hated that team. So much fun.
So why was that Tennessee team that way with this Tennessee team a little more dialed back, right? That's not the storyline.
Oh, not even close.
That's not the narrative with this team.
They have different kinds of personalities.
Sure.
They talk about like the quirkiness of the pitching staff and stuff like that. I know Tony's talked about that before with the game broadcasters, but it is definitely a little bit more subdued.
Toned down. So 3HL asked Tony about just that, about the personalities of his teams when he first got to Tennessee, hired in 2017, almost exactly. In fact, it may be exactly, what is that? 7 years ago
today.
7 years ago today. Thank you, Jackson. That Tony Vitello was hired by John Curry. So 3HL asked him about the difference in personalities between those initial teams, including that 2022 one, which was the first time that Tennessee was at the top of college baseball as a national championship favorite, and this team in 2024.
Not much. It's kind of funny you ask. I was in my house or condo the other day, and a chair had moved, and I thought either I had a ghost or somebody broke in the house because I'm not.
Those are two bad options, Coach.
I know, and I still think it had to be one of the two because I kind of do the same stuff every day, and we're still approaching things differently. I just think the one way I could summarize things, because a lot of people try and force on us that they think we've changed a bunch or we're doing things differently. Just the only thing I can summarize about everybody in the program is when we first got here, everybody was better athletes than us. They were bigger than us. We were getting bullied on our own home field, and our guys weren't sure we belonged in the SEC. We wanted to make sure that it wasn't, hey, we hired you, 3 years later, you're gone. We wanted to make a name for ourselves, and you can't do that quietly. And it probably got too loud over here, but we did whatever we had to do to become relative in this league and competitive, and hopefully get some people's respect and just make a brand name for ourselves. Well, now, I'm not saying we figured anything out or have won anything. We certainly haven't won a national championship. But now it's kind of, okay, we know our little recipe. Yeah. Let's see each year how good we can make it with the group we have. So that's kind of been, it's a different timing and a little bit different approach because of that.
So you can watch that entire interview with Tony V on the 104.5 The Zone YouTube page with 3HL. Go ahead and subscribe while you're there. Brandon on the F&M Bank chat says the villains of 2022 were fun. This team has more of a focus and has learned from that experience. And I think there is something to that. I was talking to Joseph Bonanno, 3HL producer, yesterday. He covered all those Tennessee teams very closely in college. And he agreed with this, that team felt like it was so boisterous and the you can't mess with us, you can't beat us, we're going to run you into the ground attitude, that whenever they did get hit with something, because that season was smooth sailing from start to finish. They were dominant the entire way through the SEC tournament, which they won, until they lost the Super Regional to Notre Dame, until they lost Game 1 to Notre Dame. And they reeled a little bit. Now, they came back and won Game 2 and then lost Game 3, but I do think this team is more equipped to handle those up and downs. I think this team is a little bit more measured because they have that experience of getting to Omaha, that kind of humbling experience of having a dreadful first half of the season last year and having to bounce back and have a big second half surge to get to Omaha, and to take some lumps early in the SEC slate this year and then have to bounce back and surge to win the regular season and win the SEC tournament. So this team has more experience in taking those punches and coming back from it than that 2022 team that hardly took any punches throughout the course of that season until the Super Regional, where they were eliminated at home by Notre Dame.
I hate when those, just so tired sports cliches always end up being true. Like the whole act like you've been there before type of thing. It's real. I mean, when you talk about building a young team, for example, we talk a lot about it with the Titans and veteran presences and how they can help, and guys like Tyler Boyd and dudes who have Super Bowl championship experience and L'Jarius Sneed. All these things do matter at a certain time. It's just there's no way to quantify it and I guess exactly determine how soon it's going to come into play or how much of it you need before you're ready, or all those different kind of things that make sports fun and unpredictable. But this is going to be an interesting game today because Evansville, frankly, we make jokes about how enjoyable it was to crush Robert Walsh's joy with the Evansville Purple Aces advancing past ECU. An improbable story, a sports story for all time. Made me very, very happy to not care about that baseball game at all and then to rip his heart out in real time. The Aces have no business being here in the Super Regional game. It's probably going to be a little lopsided. I feel like another 12-6 coming like it happened against my Hoosiers.
They should not be overlooked. But to that cliche, there's a reason why, and I know Vanderbilt went 2 and done and were blown out by Coastal in their first regional game, but there's a reason why Vanderbilt, going into the regionals, why we all still felt like this team could make some noise, because it wasn't because of what Vanderbilt, they didn't inspire a ton of confidence throughout the course of the season. They had injuries, right? And they beat Tennessee in the SEC tournament, but then they lose. But that DNA of that Vanderbilt program, you'd be a fool to count out Vanderbilt in the postseason. Sure. Tennessee did not have that established in 2022. And some would argue they don't have that established until they win a national title under Tony V. But I do think they're more measured and capable of handling those ups and downs this year. Real quick, Tony did say this week A.J. Russell probably done for the season, the pitcher. And tonight is looking like Chris Stamos against the lefty Kenton Deverman of Evansville, who is 9-1 this season. Tennessee's hit some snags against lefties. Both losses they took against Vandy came against the lefty pitcher, J.D. Thompson, this year. And also, a lot of people have been wondering about Zane Denton, the Brentwood native, Alabama transfer to Tennessee, was the hero in the Clemson Regional last year. Said he was going to return to Tennessee for this season, and then in the fall was holding out for personal reasons. And then finally he's popped back up, and he's in the transfer portal. So that's just kind of a thing that's been hovering around. People have been wanting that question answered for a while. Denton in the transfer portal, according to Mike Wilson. But 2 p.m. the first pitch today, Tennessee hosting Evansville in the Super Regional.
You can keep yourself updated throughout the course of the day with 104.5 The Zone. I know the 3HL crew and Brad Hopkins and Blaine Bishop will make sure to keep you updated as well. Tennessee having huge amounts of success at Lindsey Nelson Stadium throughout the course of the regular season and the postseason to date. So we'll see what happens. We are broadcasting live from the annual Golf Classic out here at Greystone Golf Club. Always good to see Terry Marlin from Fight DMD as well, where we also do a great event for the Golf for a Cure for Fight DMD, and Terry being such a big part of what they do out here in the local community. Always good to see our friends out here when we're at Dixon. The team series, the preview coming up next. The Chargers are on the Titans schedule. They have Jim Harbaugh, one of the most interesting figures of the offseason. We'll talk about if we're buying or selling the Los Angeles Chargers coming up next.
It is 11:01. Good morning from Greystone Golf Club at the Spring Golf Classic with 104.5 The Zone. I'm Lucas Panzica. The Titans wrapped up mandatory minicamp on Thursday. Lots of 7-on-7 situational work. Jeffrey Simmons, Nicholas Petit-Frere, and Tavondre Sweat, the only Titans players not spotted at practice. Head coach Brian Callahan met with the media after practice and was asked about the progress of rookie first-rounders J.C. Latham's transition to playing left tackle in the NFL.
There's things you can pick up. I think there's a movement and a mental component that you feel like as you watch it that feels good. Does he know what to do, where to go? Those things are the first things, and then you see the technique start to come along. And everything I've seen so far has been really pretty dang good for a guy making that transition for the first time playing on the left side in a while. And again, a lot more will be revealed as we get going, but everything would indicate so far that he's up to the task.
In the NBA, the Celtics dominated the Mavericks in Game 1 of the Finals, 107-89 at TD Garden. Jaylen Brown led the way with 22 points for Boston. Kristaps Porzingis with 20 off the bench in his return from injury. Game 2 will be Sunday night in Boston. Women's College World Series wrapped up Thursday. Oklahoma knocked off Texas 8-4, clinching an historic 4th straight national title for the program. In college baseball, Super Regionals get underway today. The Vols host Evansville, Game 1 at 2 p.m., for a spot in Omaha. Game 2 will be tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. You can hear the Vol Network call of that one here on The Zone. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
What's happening? Welcome in on this Friday. We're live at Greystone Golf Club, the 104.5 The Zone 2024 Golf Classic. Special thanks to people who made the prize sponsors possible today. The Braves, the Titans, Nashville SC, Tennessee Athletics, and so many other cool prizes that people playing in the early flight, which is wrapping up. Are you doing an awards ceremony later? Are you taking your professional broadcast tools and skills where you'll perhaps run into another Dixie type of situation in front of a live audience instead of just, in our comfortable studio back on Music Row?
No, I've learned my lesson from my betrayal by the F&M Bank chat. But yes, we always have great awards at the Zone Golf Classic. First, second, and third place. Of course, there is a raffle. Some great prizes over there. See some Titans gear, some Whataburger merch. Always some good stuff.
615-737-1045. Like Lucas said, the chat can't be trusted, so if you would like to try and fool us, you can do so on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Live stream the show there. You can see all the beautiful sights that Greystone Golf Club out here in beautiful Dixon, Tennessee, particularly beautiful on this day, has to offer. So, Titans wrapped up mandatory minicamp. We'll have one more day of open media availability on the 11th. Next Tuesday is the last time that there will be a media presence at St. Thomas Sports Park, and then very soon thereafter, they'll split for 6 weeks of the summer, and everybody gets a chance to reset, refresh before we get back to the grind that is training camp and then the corresponding football season. Coming into this NFL season, there's a lot of interesting teams on the Titans' schedule, but I don't know that there's a more interesting team, not just from the standpoint of a matchup, right? Not the best matchup on the Titans' schedule or the best game on the Titans' schedule, but the team I'm most curious to see where they are at that point in the season is the Los Angeles Chargers, because the Titans are in L.A. this year. Jim Harbaugh hovers over everything. Every other transaction that they made is second to Jim Harbaugh and all his quirks and all his khakis coming out to Los Angeles, the team, the franchise that he used to quarterback, and replacing your boy, Staley. Is it Josh Staley? Brandon Staley. Brandon Staley.
You're already forgetting his name.
He had a very forgettable face. Did Brandon Staley not look like a Madden creative coach, like somebody that they just threw together because Belichick wouldn't sign his rights away to be broadcast in Madden?
No, Brandon Staley looked like a 30-year-old history teacher.
Would you recognize Brandon Staley if he didn't have a hat on?
I'd recognize Brandon Staley.
I don't think that's true.
I would.
Only because your hate is what fuels you about Brandon Staley, and running him out of the league was among your favorite highlights of last year.
I just didn't agree with him on a lot of things.
So, not only does Harbaugh come from Michigan as the defending national champions. They bring over Jesse Minter, who's the defensive coordinator from the Michigan Wolverines. He doesn't hire the general manager that worked very closely with his brother John at the Baltimore Ravens, but there is an understanding that Jim Harbaugh is kind of over the general manager of the Los Angeles Chargers at this point. They brought back Mark Trestman.
Oh,
you remember Mark Trestman, former Bears coach?
He came on the show last fall. You weren't here. I was hosting with Keith Bullock out at Shoney's before the start of the season.
What a random collection of names and places that I could have missed. You, Keith Bullock, Mark Trestman, and Shoney's.
We were, you were just off that day. We were promoting the Music City Grand Prix, and Mark Trestman came on because he was writing for the 33rd team, and he was doing extensive breakdowns on every quarterback prospect ahead of their final season in college, and he had some really interesting stuff on Joe Milton right before the start of Tennessee season. So, Coach Mack knows Mark Trestman very, very well, as he does seemingly every human that's ever stepped foot into the NFL circle in one way or another.
He'll join us in 10 minutes from
now. Coach Mack made the connection, and Mark was great. So in what capacity is he on the Chargers staff?
He's like a Vrabel or a
consultant.
A Schwartz. He's an senior offensive assistant / consultant.
For Greg Roman, the offensive coordinator.
Yeah, because there's a lot of familiar faces from I'm going to do that a million times, Jim Harbaugh's past, who have come with him, not just from Michigan to the Los Angeles Chargers, but from previous stops like Greg Roman, who was, of course, his offensive coordinator in San Francisco. And another notable name, the linebackers coach, Navarro Bowman, who was a great linebacker for him in San Francisco when they were competing for Super Bowls against, ironically, his brother John. The notable transactions, they released Eric Kendricks, Mike Williams, and yesterday I think they released their center, Corey Lindsley, who was a solid player for a while, but
2 days ago,
has been missing some time throughout the course of his career with injury. They bring in Gus Edwards from the Baltimore Ravens, Hayden Hurst, who I think was drafted by the Ravens as well after having multiple stints in a couple of different spots, and Titans legend Christian Fulton is now in the Chargers secondary. So first and foremost, before and I guess the draft class matters here as well, as they take Joe Alt a couple of spots ahead of the Titans and, impact the draft thusly, continuing to improve their offensive line, doing the most Jim Harbaugh thing ever, except like J.C. Latham flipping from right tackle at Alabama to left tackle in Tennessee. Alt is flipping from left tackle at Notre Dame to right tackle in L.A. Funny how that happens. Are we buying or selling the Chargers offseason?
Selling.
That's perfect.
It's a risky play to sell the offseason because Jim Harbaugh is a mad scientist, and his body of work is good enough to where Chargers fans should just kind of roll with this, right? But if that is anyone but Jim Harbaugh, are we not trashing the LA Chargers? How could you not take the best wide receiver in the current state of today's NFL with the 5th overall pick, and you have the opportunity to take Malik Neighbors. You have the opportunity to take Rome Odunze. Marvin Harrison Jr. was off the board. But you have a left tackle.
Rashawn Slater.
Right. Like you have
a good left tackle.
A Pro Bowl caliber left tackle. You're going to spend the 5th pick on a elite prospect at left tackle to make him transition to right when I'm not going to pretend I know the right tackle situation in LA, but I don't think it's a desperate need the way left tackle is here. So if it's anyone other than Jim Harbaugh as the head coach, I'm looking at the Chargers and saying, what are you doing? You have Josh Palmer and nobody else to catch the football. I don't trust Quentin Johnston. I can barely name another receiver on the Chargers depth chart with Keenan Allen and Mike Williams gone.
Oh, well, that's your first mistake. How dare you doubt Ladd McConkey?
Oh, yes, that's true. They did get Ladd McConkey in the second round.
I wouldn't sleep. Listen, he did mention Josh Palmer. I think that I am in for exactly the reasons that you are out, because I think the thing that they are trying to make sure that they get right first and foremost in front of their $50 million plus investment at quarterback, because Herbert's on a second deal, is a cost-effective offensive line. I'm not going to denigrate it. I've watched too many bad offensive lines in the past couple of years to turn my nose up at the idea of a team not just improving a unit vastly, but fortifying it, like making sure that they Detroit Lions this thing, because it's been successful for Dan Campbell. And I know that Dan Campbell wasn't there the entire time that the offensive line was being rebuilt, but you understand the point. that you can have a Josh Palmer. Quentin Johnson, yes, is underwhelming as a first-round pick. We can absolutely agree on that. And I'm not saying that Ladd McConkey is going to come in right away and be Cooper Kupp. But I do think that there is enough there for Harbaugh to make an impact in the AFC West, even if he's competing for a wild card spot. In all likelihood, he's going to be competing for a wild card spot, because the thing that makes this thing, the reason why you would sell it the most is because the division that they're in. The division that they're in is unwinnable. As long as he's there, Mahomes, it's the AFC West. I consider it to be unwinnable.
And it's not like it's a stacked division, right? You're looking at the Raiders.
It's and them.
There's no long-term solution anywhere else in the AFC West apart from the Chargers and the Chiefs. Yeah, it is you and them. Are they Super Bowl contenders? Are the LA Chargers Super Bowl contenders?
They have to be with that quarterback.
You're saying yes.
They have to be. And I don't trust Justin Herbert. Like, he checks it down. The reason I think they're also improving the offensive line is to try and get him more comfortable pushing the ball down the field, because he's got an incredible arm. But the amount of time that dude settles for a pass to a running back or a tight end that's right in front of his face just to kind of paper cut his way down the field makes you insane.
The only playoff sample size we have of Justin Herbert is choking away a 27-0 lead against the Jags.
He's a young player, but there's no doubting the talent. So if I'm going to...
Yeah, but you can say that about Trevor Lawrence, and you're extremely low on Trevor Lawrence.
No, I think I'm low. I've not seen Trevor Lawrence do it as consistently as Justin Herbert. I think you're talking about two different levels there, because the amount of... Herbert makes all the throws, and he can make them with consistency. The question is about his decision-making, and I think his level of comfort, which is also a degree of Trevor, because when he gets hurried, when it gets muddy around him, there's definitely a difference in how he handles that situation versus an Anthony Richardson or a Will Levis, who can play well in a muddy pocket.
So they are Super Bowl contenders to you?
I don't think I can think what I do of the talent that Justin Herbert is and discount them as contending for a Super Bowl with that quarterback.
Who's their running back right now? Obviously, there's going to be more
Gus
of a dedication.
And J.K. Dobbins.
More of a dedication to running the football.
They took half of Baltimore's backfield, and the Ravens in turn signed Derek.
If that can take some of the pressure off of Herbert in the run game, which we know there's going to be an emphasis on with Greg Roman and Jim Harbaugh,
there's going to be a lot of running.
They got to have more from their receivers, though. Like, Johnston has to make some sort of leap, and I'm skeptical that he will from year one to year two.
It's fair. It's completely fair. 615-737-1045 is the number. If you want to join the conversation, you can do that. We've got Coach Dave McGinnis to talk about Titans mandatory minicamp and just about a wrap on the Titans offseason, even though there's a couple more days of work left to go. Coach Mack joins us next, live from Greystone Golf Club for the 2024 Golf Classic. Special thanks to our beverage sponsors, Reyka Vodka, Sailor Jerry, Spiced Rum, and Littman Brothers, and all the other great partners that make this day so much fun and make it possible. We've got Coach Mack next. We've got Peter Skoronsky and Blaine Bishop, the hitman, in the final hour. A lot more to go here on 104.5 The Zone. Something that affects at least half of guys as we age is ED. If you've put it off for way too long, it's time to make the call and move forward with the Tennessee Men's Clinic. The reality is that pills often quit working and guys start making excuses for a lack of performance. And I know that going to the doctor can be uncomfortable, but the Tennessee Men's Clinic is not that kind of environment. They were created in 2014 to take care of guys who are dealing with ED and who are seeking better weight loss options. They now even offer aesthetic enhancements and cosmetic procedures. Their ED and weight loss treatments truly change lives, and with no surgery, are seeing success rates as high as 90%. They even offer same or next day appointments. So call the Tennessee Men's Clinic at 615-208-9090. That's 615-208-9090, or go online to TennesseeMen'sClinic.com and book an appointment today. live from Greystone Golf Club. We are happy to have you. The show is fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. Lucas is fueled by barbecue.
Back Alley Barbecue.
That you can only get out here in Dixon County, that one of our great listeners and commenters in the YouTube chat, Uncle Bob, was kind enough to provide him with. The way to Lucas's heart is always food. The way to get Coach Mack on the radio is Two Rivers Ford. Presents his visits on all 4 shows. They are the best. The South's most trusted Ford dealer is Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet, or online at tworiversford.com. Happy Friday, Mac. Hope you're enjoying the weather.
Yeah, Buck, Lucas, you guys are at a nice place out there today enjoying the weather. 104.5 did a nice job of postponing this thing earlier because the weather would have caught it. But right now, you guys are perfect, so I'm sure everybody's having a great time out there.
Absolutely. Always a good time out here at Greystone for the Golf Classic. So, mandatory minicamp. I feel like I've asked you this question every week, so I'm going to ask you again. Have you just been sticking with the offensive line in minicamp?
Yes. Yes. Because, as I just going into this thing, look, I'm really well versed in this defense. This defense, has a long lineage and history with me. This thing has got the genesis of, you got a lot of tinges of going clear back to Buddy Ryan with Jeff Fisher, with Greg Williams, all the way through to Jim Schwartz. A lot of us that have been connected defensively in this league. So I've got a pretty good take on what this defense is now. Denard is putting his own twist on it, because of the other places that he's been. So I'm pretty well versed in this, but this football team, we've talked about this before. I just feel like, not that I'm right all the time, but the development of the offensive line and the development of the quarterback are just key to this, to this initial reset of this football team. And plus, I was very fascinated by. I wanted to watch. I've been with 2 Hall of Fame offensive line coaches in my coaching career, on the field with them, but I've competed against Bill Callahan, but I really wanted to watch him work individual. So I've spent all of my time down there during this whole off-season work that they've been here, and it's a lot of fun to watch. And I tell you what, those guys are getting a PhD in offensive line techniques. I promise you.
Well, and I'm glad that you answered the way that you did, obviously, because that's what you've been doing, but also because, Mac, the competition at right guard, and we'll see, obviously, when pads come on, they can actually discern all the things that they need to be able to tell when they're putting an offensive line together. Everything is just in the initial phase. It's constantly being adapted, just like the roster. There's no final 53-man roster. It continues to be fluid throughout the course of the year. The invaluable nature of the technical work that they're getting right now, I can't help but hate that for Nicholas Petit-Frere, who has had a lot of starting experience but continues to rehab injuries and has missed essentially all of the offseason program work with Bill Callahan despite being in the meeting rooms. I think just being able to put it into practice out there with the equipment is so important for him to keep a hold of that job.
Well, I think here's my take on it. I think the left side of this offensive line is kind of coming into shape from the center on out. Yeah. From the center through the left side, it's kind of coming into shape, and you can kind of watch it develop. I think the right side is still yet to be determined. And to your point, if you're not out there learning it, then you are behind, because even for the veteran players, and there weren't many of them that are here now learning from Bill Callahan, this is a different level of learning in the offensive line. And so, yeah, now, for whatever reason he's not out there, and, there's not anybody that they're holding out that there's not a reason that they haven't been out there, but sure. It doesn't help it, no.
Coach, so Brian Callahan talked after practice yesterday about the ability to experiment with some things, to try different things with Will Levis in 7-on-7s during this portion of the offseason program. I'm curious, on the defensive side, how much flexibility does the defense have to, quote-unquote, experiment during 7-on-7s throughout minicamp?
Well, that's what it's for. And here's the other thing, too. And I think you've heard Denard say this, and this, again, is another mantra that this defense has had ever since I've been involved with the philosophy of this type of defense, throughout my career, is that you can't be afraid of failure. And the only way that you can see if something's going to work is if you try it, because you can't go into it, especially playing defense. There's no way you could play defense cautiously. And again, what he said in the meeting rooms, I haven't been in any of his meetings. I've been in them before for 5 years, and even before that. If you a slow, correct decision on defense is wrong. You got to move. You got to be able to go. And so sometimes, you got to try some things because you've got to work at quick reactive speed and get ahead of things defensively. And so, it's extremely important, to try some things. You don't know the practice field is not where you play it safe. I guess is what I'm trying to say on either side of the ball, and especially when you're learning new things. Now you have to correctly understand. You have to correctly understand the foundations of what you are learning offensively and defensively. But for yourself, different players are going to be able to assimilate the nuances of this defense and this offense differently. But you've got to take chances. Because, if you play it safe in the ball game, that's not the way the NFL works.
And if you're trying to get Levis, and of course it's all invaluable experience for all three of the quarterbacks, and Mason Rudolph, who's played a good deal of football, and Malik Willis, who's still very much in the learning phase of his career. Invaluable to be able to go up against a defense like that, especially Brian Callahan talking about how much he hated playing Baltimore in the red zone. Of course, offense harder to do in the red zone anywhere just because of the way that everything gets compacted. But I think for Levis, it's a really, really good learning opportunity as he continues to try and take ownership of this entire thing for the first time in his career.
Well, you're correct, but and I think we're not going to be able to make just like you said, we can't make a final judgment, and there won't be any final judgment. This is a reset of this football team, and this football team that they have now. I think they've added more talent to it, but it's still in progress. And so I think through a third of the season is when you're going to be able to start to say, okay, well, I can see some of this coming together. It's just, hey, again, powder dry.
Absolutely. It's that time of year. Coach Dave McGinnis, his visits presented by Two Rivers Ford. So let's talk about some of the offensive linemen we haven't mentioned as much, Mac, because Sadiq Charles is somebody who's an interesting player. He comes in as a former third-round pick. He's got familiarity, obviously, with Lloyd Cushenberry, the two of them together at LSU. And it's curious to see him working with the rest of the group. What do you see that he brings that they didn't previously have on this offensive line or in this offensive line room?
Well, he's a physical guy. You can see that he's got power. He's got strength. And you can see that, again, if you spend time down there watching them in the individual, this is 45 minutes of legit work, that they do down there. I was kind of smiling when they went indoors for the one time at the start of this mandatory session when we had the rain outside. Those offensive linemen were saying, well, surely they can't drag all those heavy machines that we use every day inside this building. Every one of them were in the building when they walked in. And so the strength part of it is, and the technique part of it and the leverage part of it, all that's important. And he's got that. He's got that. You can see that. Now, technically where he is and how he's going to fit in, he's got a chance. Because, as I say, the right side of that offensive line to me is still. And again, I don't talk to Bill Callahan about the players. I don't talk to Rand about the players. That's not my job, But just looking at it, that side looks yet to be determined. So I would think you would have as good a chance as anybody if he does what I think he can do when the pads come on.
How easy is it to tell, Mac, when you're dealing with a player in their second year, just because we have Skoronski on the show later today,
right?
How much more comfortable they are from their rookie year to their second year, in particular when Peter has had the opportunity to just focus for one straight year on playing one position and nailing that down? Because to me, at least in dealing with him on a much different level, his comfort level is palpable.
Yeah, and I think that's a great word to use because I think you can see it. But look, Peter went through, first of all, not only moving from tackle to guard, which is where he needs to be for an extensive career in the National Football League, but that appendectomy last year was tragic. And when you lose 25 to 30 pounds as an offensive lineman, and then could try to come back and play, he wasn't the same. Now with an off season of strength, he looks much stronger to me. And then, of course, his work ethic has never been, and his intelligence has never been something that's been of question. And so I think you're 100% right. And I haven't visited with him. I'm very close friends with Dan Pompey, who's very close with his family. Mm-hmm. And the work ethic that this guy possesses is exactly what you want. I think the work ethic of both of those young guys on the left side of the line are exactly what you want. With not only with talent, but put that with a mindset that you have to have. And so I think your assessment of him of being more comfortable is exactly right. Now, they're all learning a new system, and they're all learning techniques and how techniques tie together and what Bill Callahan wants them to do, and he is meticulous with it. So he's learning that, but I think he's had a really good offseason just watching him, as I've done all of those linemen for this whole offseason.
Coach Dave McGinnis of Titans Radio here with us on 104.5 The Zone. His visits presented by Two Rivers Ford.
Coach, it's been a really interesting offseason for special teams coordinators across the league as they sit and strategize for the kickoff rule being implemented, obviously, in this upcoming season. So I'm curious, Coach Mack, if you could put yourself in the shoes of a special teams coordinator, and I were to ask you if you could build a player that would be a perfect returner with the new kickoff format, measurables, traits, what would you be looking for?
Well, let's start with not the returner. Let's start with how the frontline blockers are going to be set up, because that's going to be different than it has been in the past, too. Because, first of all, it used to have more nimble in-space guys being your frontline guys, because you had to retreat 18 to 21 yards and then come to balance and be able to, to square up on whoever you were going to square up on, or be able to play, all of the switching lanes with somebody with a 40-yard run at you, like Braveheart coming downfield at you. That's not the way it is now. That's not the way it is. And so, blocks are going to be taking place in a very much shorter area. So are you going to have bigger people up front? It's the first play. I spent a lot of time talking with time ever since this was proposed, even at the combine, because John Bones Fossil there, I'm very close with at the Cowboys, and he was on this committee and was really instrumental in some of this stuff. And so first of all, it's going to be the first offensive play of the series. And so to me, it's not only who the returner is, and they're going to have two returners back there, by the way, but it's not only who those guys are, it's what's going to be the makeup of your guys up front. That I think special teams coaches, Lucas, are going to be experimenting with this even during the season, into the season, because this is completely new. But just, in talking with special teams coaches at the combine when they were thinking about this and talking to Bones, about, kind of the ideas and the strategies of it, I think your personnel makeup of your coverage teams and of your frontline blocking units and the returners, as you brought up, it's going to be different. So, because it's going to be a running play. I mean, you're looking to make it a running play, and whether people are going to go pin and pull, types of things, or whether you're going to, and the defenses, you can't move till the ball's kicked, but they're going to be switching lanes. And I mean, it's going to be interesting to watch, but you're going to need somebody that, you'd like to have somebody that not only has speed, but let's talk about the power enough to break one tackle. And we haven't even talked about who's going to be the kickers, because do you want your kicker being the last line of defense that's going to have to make a tackle? The way this thing is set up, it's going to be very, very interesting. This is brand new for the National Football League, as we all know.
I do want the kickers to be in that position, Mac. I want the visual of kickers backpedaling and trying to save touchdowns. I think that is hilarious, even though that would drive special teams coordinators crazy, of course. Not everybody has a Justin Reed like Kansas City does that can do a little bit of both. But in all seriousness, Colt Anderson, how intriguing. It's good to have options for this new look kickoff situation. How intriguing of an option is a Treylon Burks for that same reasons that you just mentioned, both the speed and the power that he has, that we've seen him display, and still trying to figure out exactly the best way to use him offensively. How much of an asset can the special teams component be?
Yeah, well, he absolutely could be. I mean, because he's good with the football in his hands, and he's hard to bring down. I mean, he's a big runner that's got some after catch ability, as a receiver. So I mean, and again, when you look at it and you start visualizing it, I mean, it's going to be a different type of a play. And people all of a sudden, I mean, not all of a sudden, initially assumed, well, you'd have a little gadget guy back there, but you got to be able to break. You're going to have to be able to break a tackle first. But then when you do, then you're going to have to be able to clear view, make somebody miss and then run away from people. So, yeah, I would think that he would have a chance to do that.
He's Coach Dave McGinnis, Titans Radio. You can check out the OTP, the official Titans podcast. I know the Titans Radio crew, including Titans Amy and Mike Keith, have been doing some good interviews there. I know Levis was on the OTP here recently. TennesseeTitans.com is where you can see all the cool stuff that the Titans Radio crew is doing this offseason to keep you informed. Thank you, Mac. We appreciate it. Have a great weekend.
Yeah, Buck, you guys do too. Appreciate being on with you. See you.
That's the main man, Coach Dave McGinnis of Titans Radio, hanging out here with us live from the Greystone Golf Club. Special thanks to Superior Industrial Products, Master Staff Incorporated, Jamison Cryo Plus, and all the other companies who made this great day so much fun for us to be out here in Dixon today. Some good stuff there from Mac. I mean, he does not budge from that one spot along the fence line where the offensive line area is on the. There's 3 practice fields and then an additional field at like a mini field, I guess you would call it, at the front or at the end of the St. Thomas Sports Park facility where they have all the offensive line equipment and where the offensive line have always kind of practiced, at least as long as I've been covering them out there. And to see Mac, and I know Ramon has spent some time with him back there, the entire Titans Radio crew, just watching this thing being built from the ground up is going to be a huge part of how this team continues to develop and progress. What'd you say, Jackson?
Said you got 2 minutes, bud.
Oh, okay. Thanks. I was talking. I didn't hear you. I appreciate it. 615-737-1045 is the number if you want to join the conversation. Speaking of Titans offensive lineman, Peter Skoronski is on the show to start the noon hour. Of course, the hitman, Blaine Bishop, is also here, not just for Brad Hopkins and Blaine Bishop, which we are the opening act for, but he's going to talk a little shop with us as well. We always look forward to having Blaine on the show. We appreciate him showing up a little early for us. Friday Fire is what we have coming up next. What gave you the feel good? 615-737-1045. Did you have a good week at work? Did something happen in your life that was excellent? What made you feel good this week, sports or otherwise? We want to hear it. Coming up next, live from Greystone Golf Club, where we are broadcasting for the 2024 Golf Classic, presented by Ferguson and State Water Heaters today.
bump back with that? Does he bump back with Friday Fire? That's smart. Yeah, 100%.
Welcome back here live at Greystone Golf Club show, fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. It's the 2024 Golf Classic presented by Ferguson and State Water Heaters. Special thanks to King & Associates, Brentwood Hearing, Cool Ray Heating, Cooling, Plumbing, and Electrical, and our great friends at Two Rivers Ford. We got Friday Fire. What gave you the feel good? Lucas, I found something to give away. You didn't bring anything to the table this week, so I had to go out and find something to give away to people. And it's something that's very near and dear to my heart.
What's that?
It's 2 tickets to Holiday World up in Santa Claus, Indiana. We should probably take Bert. If Bert had fun at Nashville Shores, he would have the time of his life at a theme park centered around all the different holidays. Jay Cutler's hometown of Santa Claus, Indiana. Free sunscreen, free parking, free soft drinks. Holiday World, baby. You give us your Friday Fire, we'll give you 2 tickets to head on up to Holiday World and have the time of your life. All right, mine is that we are through the bulk of the offseason.
Wait, what's the number?
615-737-1045. Call. Jackson will put you on hold. Stay on hold after you give us your submission so that Jackson can get back into contact with you. Thank you, Lucas. Mine is that the offseason program's almost over. I'm ready for summer vacation from the NFL because I'm legitimately excited to have like a break, to come back in, and I think, selfishly, I think we're going to kick ass this football season. As a show, I think it's going to be a big season for the football team. I'm really excited about all the cool stuff that we're going to do, and I had that thought driving out here as I was enjoying my ride through Dixon, Tennessee, and the vibes were high, and then I sat down, and you and Kirby immediately pissed me off and ruined it, but that's not what this segment is about. This segment is about Friday Fire, and then that's my Friday Fire.
It is a beautiful drive out here.
It is a beautiful drive, and you ruined it.
My Friday Fire is USA, because the U.S. cricket team just orchestrated a shocking defeat of a powerhouse, Pakistan, in the T20 World Cup in cricket. Now,
Pakistan can eat it.
I know nothing about cricket.
Me neither. And USA, baby.
The U.S. won a dramatic super over victory, which I just context clues, like an overtime type of thing.
Oh, I want
super over.
No, I want that to be like a mega victory or an over, like something that's even better than a normal victory.
Well, it's just group stage, but I don't know anything about cricket. I do know that Pakistan and India are cricket powerhouses.
Yes.
And the U.S. is in Group A of the T20 World Cup alongside Pakistan and India, who is the world's number 1, by the way. The U.S. has yet to play India. But a shocking defeat yesterday. One of the biggest defeats, people are calling it, straight up, in international sports history. Truly. This is an insane Cinderella type. Now, a lot of the U.S. players are Pakistani Americans, but it's so cool. So many of them have, normal jobs. They're like software engineers or whatever, and are on the U.S. international cricket team. And just the waves this is making in the sports world. Pakistan is the number 6 team in the world. The U.S. team is number 18. But there is a huge gap between the likes of Pakistan and India and New Zealand and these powerhouse cricket countries and countries like America. So go USA. My Friday Fire is that upset win over Pakistan in the T20 Cricket World Cup.
Bald Eagles, baby. USA, screeching. USA, USA.
Bert, can we get a bald eagle screech?
No, I don't want that. No, he's got food in his mouth. No. Oh, my God. Into the
USA, USA, USA.
Into my ear with that. I hate him so much. I think a half his pulled pork sandwich ended up on your microphone.
Ooh,
disgusting.
Snack time.
Did you know that's the first sport I ever played in school is cricket?
How is that?
I went to a British international school when we lived in Egypt, and we played cricket at recess.
Oh, what a flex.
That's right. I deserve a fine for that. Now, I could get fined again if I wanted to say that our friend Ron Slade just showed up at the golf course for the 104.5 The Zone. Find me again, Jackson. I'll pay them all today at the 104.5 The Zone Golf Classic presented by Ferguson and State Water Heaters. Slade, you playing golf today? Stop talking to Robert like he's got anything.
He's not paying attention to you.
A damn bit of attention to me whatsoever.
Robert is a more interesting conversationalist. You have to admit that.
Well, also, he's got barbecue, so it's already been slanted against me. Anyway, what is your Friday Fire, Jackson?
I'm going with the Vikings' new winter Warrior uniforms. They look absolutely sick. I'm surprised more NFL teams have not done this. A full whiteout jersey combo with a whited out helmet. Just it looks so crisp and clean. I think it's going to look great on the field. contender
think
for a
I've-
top 5 uniform in the league.
It's good.
I don't think I've seen the uniform. Ooh, it kind of looks like the Cowboys, though, doesn't it?
No.
I see what you're saying, but I just love the stormtrooper approach. Like I'm a big, crisp, white, just clean sheet type of uniform.
See, I like they did the photo shoots in front of like a Game of Thrones style icicle throne or something like that. I really like the effects there. Yeah, I like it. It initially looked like K-State to me, which is not a bad look. All right, the Winter Warriors, 615-737-1045. You give us your Friday Fire, we'll give you 2 tickets to Holiday World. Who you want to start with, Jackson? Who's up first?
Larry, he's a retired military.
All right, go ahead, Larry.
Yes, sir. Good to hear you guys on there. You have a great show. Just calling about, I live in Logan County, Kentucky, and for Memorial Day, the traveling monument for the Vietnam War Memorial comes through our county, and our high school coach had our kids to be the one to assemble it, and it was great to see those kids learn and be humbled.
That's an incredibly powerful moment, I'm sure. Thank you so much for the call, Larry. We appreciate it. And certainly yesterday being the anniversary of D-Day, all sorts of. I sat there and watched. I don't turn on the History Channel very often, I guess, but they've always got on U.S. Historic Days. Obviously, the History Channel has a lot of good specials and stuff like that going. And just to kind of refresh your memory on all the different details and all the different people and Tennessee's impact. They had a story on, I was watching WKRN last night, local news. They had a story about how people trained here on farms in Tennessee before being deployed and things like that, and the impact that it had on the community. So anytime that you can remember those moments and those people and that through line specifically, a really, really powerful moment. That's a great one, Larry.
What a Go America segment we're having here.
How about that?
This is great. Bert,
Yeah.
Bert, can we get another bald eagle screech?
No, he's got barbecue in his...
USA! USA! USA!
Why do you have to ruin it with him? Who's up next, Jackson?
That's all, folks.
Okay. Give the tickets to Larry. All right. I really sold the Holiday World thing, huh? Free sunscreen, free parking, free sodas.
Didn't do it for people.
Hey, at least we got Larry to take him and a friend to Holiday World. It'll be a great time. Larry, thank you so much for the call. We appreciate it. 615. Nobody's got anything else positive to say. That always drives me crazy. We spend so much airtime just bitching about things, and we do the one positive segment. Nobody got anything good to say about their week.
I did everything right, and they indicted me.
Not even him has anything good to say about his week. You know what's good about this week? We got Peter Skoronsky on the radio show. The interview that we did with him is coming up next.
It is 11:58. Broadcasting live from Greystone Golf Club in Dixon for the Zone Spring Golf Classic. I'm Lucas Panzica. The Titans wrapped up mandatory minicamp Thursday, getting a lot of 7-on-7 situational work in. Jeffrey Simmons, Nicholas Petit-Frere, and Tavondre Sweat, the only Titans players that were not present. Titans will have some OTAs next week before breaking for the remainder of the offseason. NBA Finals, Celtics dominated Game 1 against the Mavericks, 107-89. Game 2 will be Sunday night in Boston. In college baseball, Super Regionals get underway this afternoon. The Vols host Evansville. Game 1 at 2 p.m. Game 2 will be tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. You can hear the Vol Network call of that one here on The Zone. Stanley Cup Finals get started Saturday night. Game 1 is in Sunrise, Florida, as the Panthers host the Edmonton Oilers. Puck drop is at 7 p.m. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Final hour here in Dixon. Greystone Golf Club, that's where we're hanging out for the 2024 Golf Classic presented by Ferguson and State Water Heaters. Thanks for spending your Friday afternoon, or at least a little part of it, with us. We got Lucas. Everybody is here. Slay just showed up. We got the Hitman on in 20 minutes. Bert is still wandering around, waddling around drunk and bothering people at various tables. We're trying to keep him contained. There's only so much that can be done at this point.
Don't take food off of their plates.
615-737-1045. That's the number. If you want to join in, Lucas is also monitoring things on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, the FNM Bank chat. If you would like to send us a message in there, we would be glad to see them. We have Peter Skoronsky. Always good to have Pete on the show, and sat down with him yesterday at mandatory minicamp. A lot of interesting things going on the offensive line all offseason long. Talked about his comfort level with Coach Mack earlier. I think you'll hear that throughout the course of this interview. Here is former Titans first-round pick, Peter Skoronsky. Peter Skoronsky, good enough to give me some time. Weaver's been making me do this thing where he cheers the microphone before we do an interview. You ready?
Cheers.
All right. Cheers, bud. It's good to see you. What have the last 3 days been like?
Yeah, I mean, pretty standard in terms of what we've already been doing for the past 2 or 3 weeks already. But a lot of really, really good work. Had some tough days, in terms of just conditioning and amount of drills, but it's been really good work, and it's good to have everybody really in the building. And kind of get that extra meeting time too. So definitely feel like we've grown these past few days, but good.
I don't know that I've ever seen a group of football players more relieved to be done with a drill than Olga and Bertha. The collective sigh of relief that you guys
that seems to be the only drill that anybody knows about. We actually do other drills over there.
All right, so educate us, because this majority of people are listening to this on FM radio, so we tell them the things that we see, and we get hyper focused on one thing. So it's it may not be the most well rounded. So take us through the other equipment, because it looks like a whole science experiment out there half the time.
Well, we usually start underneath the chutes with just like the metal bar.
Right. Hanging out here at the last day of Titans mandatory minicamp with Peter Skoronsky. Good enough to give me some time. Weaver's been making me do this thing where he cheers the microphone before we do an interview. You ready?
Yeah. Cheers.
All right. Cheers, bud. It's good to see you. What have the last 3 days been like?
Yeah, I mean, pretty standard in terms of what we've already been doing for the past 2 or 3 weeks already. But a lot of really, really good work. Had some tough days, in terms of just conditioning and amount of drills, but it's been really good work, and it's good to have everybody really in the building. And kind of get that extra meeting time too. So definitely feel like we've grown these past few days, but good.
I don't know that I've ever seen a group of football players more relieved to be done with a drill than Olga and Bertha. The collective sigh of relief that you guys
that seems to be the only drill that anybody knows about. We actually do other drills over there.
All right, so educate us, because this majority of people are listening to this on FM radio, so we tell them the things that we see, and we get hyper focused on one thing. So it's it may not be the most well-rounded. So take us through the other equipment, because it looks like a whole science experiment out there half the time.
Well, we'll usually start underneath the chutes with just like the metal bar.
Right.
And, we'll do, 1 rep each way of reach blocks, and then reach blocks with a different hand fit, and then inside half of double teams and outside zone. So that's like 4 or 5 different things underneath the chute. And then maybe we'll go and do.
And that's all just under the chute.
Yes, that's all on the chute, which it can move pretty quickly, and he's pretty intense at the beginning of individual. So that can be pretty tough. And then we'll go and do fit up reaches on a guy, and do that. Because we usually don't do Olga and Bertha until about halfway through. And is it difficult? Yes, for sure. But the good thing is that we're in line, so it's not like everyone's going bam, 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 and goes back and forth and back and forth. And usually there's maximum 2 reps. So it's difficult, but it's not like the worst drill. I mean, we do a wave drill with sandbags in our hands.
Yeah.
That kicks everyone's butt.
So what's the wave drill? Don't worry, it's recorded. We can cuss and get away with it.
The wave drill is you're in a stance, and he'll point you, and you'll kick wherever he's pointing, and then he'll point the other way, and you'll post where he's pointing. So you're changing directions in your pass pro stance. So it's cardio in itself, and it's footwork. But then sometimes he'll add a sandbag, so you're carrying a 50-pound sandbag in your hands. My God. So you have the added resistance of needing to stay upright while also moving and kicking, and very tiring.
How much more relaxed are you about just everything that's going on now that you don't have to deal with all the rookie and everything that goes into just preparing to be an NFL player beyond position specific?
I'm a lot more relaxed, I think, for sure. I think it's kind of night and day from last year. Having a whole year at guard and having a whole offseason at guard, I think it's just made a huge difference in my mentality. Once we get the pads on, things will change. Things will be more intense. There's nothing super relaxing about full pads at camp and stuff like that, but just definitely feel way more comfortable where I am. And, even in this new offense, really liking it and liking the stuff we're doing. I think it fits me well. So, yeah.
So for you and for the room, there's a lot of different pieces just generally with the team this year, beyond the coaching staff, obviously, and the changes that have been made. How would you, for the audience who hasn't got to know all of you guys yet, how would you describe the offensive line room right now?
Yeah, I think we're in a pretty energetic room. I think
JC just crashed our press conference. I don't know if you saw that. Yeah, he's asking Callahan for tackle screens.
He's got he's a hard worker. I mean, he's got a ton of energy and a ton of juice, and he's really, really eager to learn and get better, which is really all you can ask from a rookie, in my opinion. So he's got that, more than enough of that, in my opinion. And we've got a lot of guys who are working hard, and we all sort of unite under the grind that is Bill Callahan's individual period. So we get used to that, and we get used to his mannerisms and being coached by him, and I think it's brought us closer together. So really enjoyed being around this group. It's been a lot of fun.
Well, I remember the last media availability that we had with you, and you said that you've been warned about how intense of a coach he is from guys that you had trained with, and so you've seen that already, I'm sure.
Yeah, no doubt. He'll definitely get after you, but in a good way where you feel you're getting better and doing really productive things, but it's not easy for sure.
For your draft class, you got Will, disputed starting quarterback coming into the season. He's, that has to be a degree of burden off his shoulders. Tajay, obviously working with Tony and the rest of the backs, but it's different without Derrick Henry, who's just a bit of a presence over everything, understandably so. Sure. You guys, the level of ownership that you as a draft class are taking over this football team right now, how would you articulate it?
Yeah, I feel like our coaching staff and our front office definitely has a lot of belief in our group. I think that's a point of pride for us in terms of, their confidence in us. And I think every single one of us is motivated to return that, and produce and kind of prove them right, I think is something Will said. So yeah, I think it's definitely a motivating factor, but definitely a point of pride for us too, in that they believe in us, and, we want to do our best to prove them right.
As it relates to JC, obviously, who you're going to work with primarily, work alongside with, and Lloyd, just I guess how the benefit of the two of them, one who's new to the NFL, obviously, but high-level athlete, obviously a former first-round pick like yourself, and then Lloyd, who was a full, I think he started for his entire rookie season and has been a full-time starter since then. And the invaluable nature of that knowledge, having a center like that to play alongside.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. I think center is such a cerebral position in a lot of ways. Especially in this offense. So it's really good to have someone who's got a lot of experience under their belt and is also just like a really smart cerebral guy with a really good demeanor. And that's Lloyd, and I think we're lucky to have someone like that in the middle. So yeah, it's a huge help to me as a guard. I think you rely so much on center communication. And I think it'll be a huge help to JC too, because it goes down the line. So just kind of an anchor there in terms of not just physically but mentally too.
An errant pass was thrown in the direction of the media today. Guy dropped it the first time. Malik came back to him, hit it the second time. It was a body catch, but he caught it. Would you, as a football team, ever be interested in seeing us embarrass ourselves in kind of a media combine the way that Seattle does?
I would really, really love that.
Because we are, we're critics for a living.
Okay.
Are you're scouting out the group right now as JC's at the podium?
At people, the squad over there.
I was mentioning the squad. That's a very generous description of a bunch of unathletic.
I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. Who do you think would do? What are the drills exactly?
Oh, well, I think there you have to field a punt. I think that requires some degree of hand-eye coordination. I think there have to be some form of ladder or footwork drill. We'll leave that to you. I think we should see some people take a crack at Bertha Olga.
Absolutely.
Early. Because, 380 pounds, seeing how difficult it can be for you guys to move that thing, just the idea of like me running into it and collapsing in a pile of myself, I think is, entertainment enough to get us through training.
We can put, I think just putting you guys through a Bill Callahan and Indy would be enough entertainment for me, but I would love to see a full combine.
Well, I don't have Kirby here to hand you a Buckeye this year, but I appreciate you sitting down with me. It's always good to see you, and continued health and success.
Appreciate it. Thanks,
Peter. Really high level, running through teams on the way to the AFC Championship in 2019.
Well, because Cushenberry is kind of is a soft-spoken guy. Even Nick Holtz was talking about that his style of leadership is more of just that steadying veteran presence. He's not the rah-rah, get guys fired up. And we've seen that in interviews. Skoronski's a little more kind of on the subdued, conversational from that angle. And JC is the juice. We don't know a lot about the right side of the offensive line. Like we don't know who's the starting right guard.
I know it's Leroy Watson, not Leroy Watson. Leroy Watson.
Who I know talked to you guys a little bit the other day too. But if J.C. Latham could settle into that role, then it feels like that could kind of extrapolate to the rest of the offensive line to have that personality on the most important side of it. And when we talk about guys being surrounded by better situations like Levis, okay, they've invested in the offensive line and the wide receiver group is as good as it's been in who knows how long for this franchise. Peter Skoronski is better positioned this year than he was last year, without a doubt, with what's on the left and right of him. Potentially, Latham still has to prove things, but even just physically of being confident that he's likely not going to have this wild card setback that he had in the very beginning of his rookie season last year with an appendectomy. You only get one appendix, so can't have it burst again.
Are you sure?
I'm pretty sure. 2 kidneys, one appendix.
You have a girlfriend who's a doctor, or fiance now who's a doctor. So perhaps you may know something about the human anatomy. Who's to say? 615-737-1045 is how you join the conversation. Blaine Bishop going to join the conversation coming up next. We're hanging out here live at the 1045 The Zone 2024 Golf Classic, where all 4 of the shows are broadcasting live today. So Blaine will hang out a little bit with us, and then, of course, you can hear him and Brad Hopkins right after. Special thanks to Milagro Tequila, Hendricks Gin, Reka Vodka, Sailor Jerry Spiced Rum, and Lippman Brothers, our beverage sponsors for today's awesome event. We'll talk more shop with the hitman, Blaine Bishop, coming up next. Welcome back live from Greystone Golf Club. The show is fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. If you listen to this show, you know we are merely the opening act for the real entertainment, which comes your way from 1 to 3 with Blaine Bishop and Brad Hopkins. The Hitman joins us now on 104.5 The Zone. Thanks for doing it, bud.
Oh, yeah, anytime, man. We all at the same location having a ball, man. It's just like party to the tardy.
Absolutely. The Zone Golf Classic is always a good time. Bert's having too good of a time. He's been eating food.
He's not eating, is he?
Well, he's eating food off other people's plates because apparently the food from Uncle Bud's, he's already been through a couple of trays of catfish. I saw him with a hush puppy hanging out of his beard. It's been pretty concerning. Him and Lucas are here solely for the
not
food,
like that.
as I understand
He's
it.
picking the olives out of people's Bloody Marys as he walks by.
Well, I think he's still trying to, hang on to the little bit of diet that he was doing. That's what the deal is.
He did lose. He has lost a considerable amont of weight, to his credit.
Looks great. I think he's stuck in neutral right now, though.
Well, he's got to stop that sleep eating thing, Blaine. We haven't told you about that.
What's sleep eating?
He eats in his sleep.
How do you do that?
I would.
Is this a thing?
When his lovely girlfriend Cheyenne joins us in studio to braid his hair because he lost a bet live on air on Monday.
Yeah, I heard the bet. Guess you right.
We will. Oh, yeah. Evansville Purple Aces. Eat it. ECU Pirates. Either way, when Cheyenne comes in, we will have her explain the sleep eating phenomenon for all the people.
Is he
because
just
apparently
walking
this
in
is
his
real.
sleep, going to get food, and he doesn't know he's still asleep?
Blaine, if you woke up one morning just covered in what are those thing that you used to make like witch's nails? You put them on the end of your fingers.
Bugles.
Bugles. When you wake up covered in bugles one morning and you don't know how they got there, that's been Robert Walsh's entire experiences.
You ever sleepwalk?
His whole life.
No, I have not.
Blaine was not prepared for this line of questioning.
I'm trying to think of a time. If I move, at any point and get out of my bed, my wife be like, "Where are you going?" She's the lightest sleeper, and I'm the heaviest sleeper. Like, I can go through a storm. She'll be kicking me. Hey, did you hear the storm? What's going on? Go watch TV. No, I'm asleep.
Go watch TV.
If something's going on, I am going to be asleep. If something happens, I am asleep. I am cool with that.
Absolutely. Nothing wrong with some downtime. Nothing wrong with some beauty rest. Blaine Bishop here with us on 104.5 The Zone. So we have been, I always like getting your perspective on things, Blaine, because I can be a little overreactionary. And there's really not that much to overreact about coming out of rookie minicamp, or rather mandatory minicamp. It's been pretty routine. New system, new coaching staff, players working together. Vibes are high.
I'm jealous, by the way. You get to go to practice. I don't.
Well, you've been out of practice.
Well,
I feel like I've seen you.
But I only can stay there like half the time, and then I go. And then I miss 707's just starting, and I got to zoom up out of there.
Well, training camp not that far away, and we'll all be able to take in open practices once that starts. That'll be a good
what time will it be practice?
That's an excellent question because we got a new coaching staff. We got a new schedule. I feel like the three of us in some form or fashion are going to be out there on a regular basis at training camp. Anyway, the Tavondre Sweat thing. Is it worth the conversation at all if a player who's missing some time due to an injury that they were taking precautions with has now not been out there for an open practice, a practice that we have seen in more than a month? He's been at the facility. He continues to work. They have a dietitian and all the different things that they are working with him and all his big man problems that they talked about coming out of the draft. But how big of a deal is it that Tavondre Sweat hasn't practiced in about a month?
Well, I'm assuming now, based off what you just said, that it's maybe some type of strain injury or something to that effect.
They don't have to give us an injury report yet,
course.
so they're keeping it pretty
I'm just
hush-hush.
guessing based off how you say, nobody said he's had surgery, so I'm assuming he didn't have that. The only thing that's a little concerning is that he's missing reps to be better for himself as an individual than in his impact with the team. So we're talking about until you start doing things live and in person, you can know the playbook all you want to, learn all the things you need to do, but until you're out there moving around. So, at some point he's hurting himself. Yes, it's a little concerning, but let's see when training camp really starts. But he's still going to be a little bit behind. There's no way around it. Any rookie who's missing valuable time like this and getting those reps, I'm going to just use the word stunning their growth. And they need to have him revved up and ready to rock and roll week 1 because of where he went in the draft, how talented he is, and to prove the naysayers wrong about all the things outside of football that he can control to make sure that he stays in line and doing the right things. And I think he will, to be honest. That was never a concern of mine because here's what you're supposed to do. People get real concerned about, like, off-the-field issues. So he had one off the field issue, right? Right during the draft. Everybody go, oh, that was so ding dongery. I'm not going to say what people really were saying. So I look at it like this. Okay, you finished with all your draft process. You're excited as a young man, 21 years old. You've gotten, right before the draft, I think it's happening. Now you're done with all the workouts, all the interviews. What's the first thing you're going to go do as a normal person?
Have a good time.
I'm having a cocktail.
Right. So that's how I view it. Now, if there was a pattern and a history of this beforehand added to that, now that's different. But he didn't. It was the only time ever throughout his career. So I don't look at that as that's who he is. I just don't. You got to do it 2 times for me to say this is who you are. You're showing a pattern. So that never really concerned me at that time getting drafted. Now, maybe how high you took him and all those things, that's a different story. And, also a lot of people talking about his weight. Well, I think the Titans knew his weight when they drafted him.
Yep.
So in his mind, he goes, well, I just got to be a little bit better than that. Now, if they talk to him and he's a lot more motivated and gets around the right people, maybe then we start seeing this dominating force that he could be. Because if you go watch his tape, he's more than just a run stuffer. Now, it was kind of funny people say that. So I said, okay, let me go watch every single game of his senior year. And I didn't see that. Now, the sack numbers don't show that he is a good pass rusher.
Yeah.
But if you go watch the games, he is causing havoc and putting pressure on the quarterback time in and time out. Now, the only thing that really concerns me based off of what he did in college is how much he was on the field, and that goes to conditioning. So that's where I say it's a little bit concerning because he's also missing conditioning. I don't know how much he's running. I don't know what's his whole issue. But I have to assume since he's not out there, that's the kind of reps you need to be getting with your teammate.
Well, it just kind of it lives in the back of your head, at least recently for Titans fans, because we spent a whole offseason talking about the conditioning and the unreported asthma situation for Traylon Burks. And so I think there's just a little bit of concern when you talk about conditioning and anybody who's missing these reps at this time.
I think it is valuable. It's a little concerning.
Absolutely. Blaine
But
Bishop.
is that more concerning than Will Levis throwing interceptions or having a bad day at practice? Which one is more important?
Well, sure as hell the quarterback in any form or fashion.
What do you think, Lucas?
I mean, in 7-on-7s, everything is with a massive grain of salt, right? When you're talking about what the quarterback is doing and charting his completions and things like that. I mean, it's been an incredible.
I got to have something to do during practice, Lucas. I got to chart completions.
I understand.
Jim White is the king of it, though, man.
The king.
Yeah.
The king.
And we're going to focus in on Tavondre Sweat because it's him and Nicholas Petit-Frere that are out there for any physical reasons that we know of, right? For all we know, Jeffrey Simmons will be out there whenever he needs to be out there. You don't really worry about Jeffrey Simmons until you have a reason to worry. But with Tavondre Sweat, I'm not worried about the off-field stuff at all. But I do think the fact that we don't know what the injury is, we think it's an injury, we don't know what it is, so it leaves some room for imagination. So my biggest question is, we know the weight thing is key, getting down to a certain weight. It's going to be a process for him all offseason. Not knowing what the injury is, my big question is it something that will hold him back from being able to achieve that, from getting down to the weight and getting to the conditioning level that they need him to? I don't know if it's a lower body thing. I have no idea. But if it is, how much is that hindering him from being in shape come training camp?
Right. I think it does. It's going to put him behind. There's no way around it because he's not out there getting the reps, especially as a young player. Veteran player, not so much. But here's what they do have. They got a security blanket, and his name is Day, right? So, right, he started in this league. He's probably not as talented as Sweat, obviously, but he can hold the fort until you get him up to speed.
He's a former team captain. He's a vet. This is a guy who's been around
I think
and can
that's
manage
why
the moment.
I'm a little concerned, but at the same time, in this day and age with the Gen Z guys that's coming out of college football, you got to know who you're dealing with and what type of players that come out, and you got to know who he is and know how to push the right buttons. And I think that's why they flew out there with him, Rand and crew, to see what they were doing, almost like they knew they were going to draft him. I mean, it was really weird to me. They went all out of the way just to see, was this arrest or speeding deal really legit, or is that who you are?
Well, because they got offers, Blaine. Carolina took a deal with the Los Angeles Rams for Braden Fisk. They had drafted Jared Verse in the first round, the Rams did, and they wanted to draft Braden Fisk, who played with him at Florida State. So they were calling a lot of teams in that area around 39 and making offers. And that's I think, why there's additional scrutiny, especially because Rand has talked about that, the idea that they had offers for 39. And to your point, That was their guy, right? They did all of this homework on this dude. They were comfortable in their minds taking him with the environment that they created around him. They put his locker between Jeff Simmons and his former Texas teammate, Keandre Coburn, which I'm sure is going to have an impact to just kind of give him the kind of positive reinforcement and influences that he needs in the locker room, which I know you can speak to better than I.
It's the same logic we heard from Latham about why they took Latham at 7 instead of trading out of the top 10 and why they're comfortable with him making that transition.
Brian Callahan was asked about T'Vondre Sweat missing time earlier this week. This was the Titans head coach at minicamp.
Oh, no.
that echoing silence as Jackson scrambles for the audio back.
All the way up. I was like, did I not hear it or something?
Deafening.
Jackson, do you have the audio? Are you ready?
He had to take he took a potty break.
He went to the bathroom. So that's Brian Callahan. And then J.C. Latham was also asked about his fellow draft classmate in T'Vondre Sweat, beyond just who's going to catch a touchdown first in the offense, Blaine, because they were going back and forth on that. This was the Titans' first-round pick, speaking on the second-round pick and his absence.
As a group, just as a team. So, we're always there for one another. So, but yeah, I think he'll be pretty good.
Obviously, you're on the grind. That's J.C. Latham speaking yesterday at practice. Blaine Bishop here with us on 104.5 The Zone. You can hear him and Brad Hopkins coming up next from 1 to 3, live from Greystone Golf Club. As an established vet on a team, Blaine, when you have as many, because there's turnover every year in the NFL, when you have as much turnover as this team has had and you're the established vet who's still holding serve, how do you approach this time of year and the value of these off-season conditioning and programs?
Me personally, just as a player?
Yeah.
Well, I always try to, every year you're trying to improve on some form of weakness. And I think that's a characteristic a lot of players don't like approaching is their weaknesses because they think they're blind to them and don't have any when everybody does. So you're going to try to work on those during the off season. Then you want to see how much it plays into when you're practicing. So now is the time that we're practicing. We want to see if I've improved. Those are the self-motivated guys, and I want to see if that's what these guys are. It seems like they all have somewhat similar traits, and that's one of them. Leadership. When you hear Latham, I hear a mature, focused, rookie player, and it's fascinating to hear that because it's, it kind of resonates with me because I like working with players like that when I was a player because you get a lot of, on the other end of that, a guy who's not even focused. I'm a first-round pick. I'm happy I got the money. I'm going to spend it. I'm going to just have some fun, and I'm going to just go out here like it's college. Stop that. And now we all serious here. If you got drafted in the first round, you're supposed to contribute right away, and I mean be a huge impact. So that was refreshing to hear from J.C. Latham. I really got super excited, almost as much as I got excited hearing Wilson, the D.C., talking, because I felt like he was talking just like Greg Williams, so you could tell, except with no explicatives, a lot more polished. But it was the same message. It was really clear. It was, oh, man, every time I hear him, I feel like I am sitting in a meeting room once again, and I start having memories of all the things that, they used to say to us.
Well, Coach Mack talked about that earlier because he talked about the through line of this defense and how many different generations that this defense has gone through, and Greg Williams being one of the people that impacted. Coach Mack even talked about Buddy Ryan going back.
Yeah, I was with them too.
Right. So you have good context of what this defense is at its core. So when you hear Denard Wilson speak, I'm sure it resonates with you more than just about anybody else out there because you understand what his approach is, who he's been coached by, and why, when we talked to players, like we sat down with Rashad Weaver was surprised that this was his first time being a defensive coordinator, just the way that he carries himself and conducts his meetings.
Yeah. A lot of guys from Philly, though, tell me that he should have got the DC job, and they made a huge mistake there. And that really is what got them, at least on the defensive side, once the season got going and everything else. But he's talented. He's going to get a shot. I'm hoping he's not a one-year wonder and then he's a head coach here pretty soon, because that's how he speaks. He's got some great leadership skills, very talented. So I'm glad he's getting an opportunity, and it's in the Titans uniform. I'm just hoping it's longer than
Maybe
1 year.
2 years. Maybe two.
Hopefully, and then or 2 years. I want 3, because then we're moving to the stadium, right? In 3 years,
allegedly,
2027.
Allegedly, right? Reason why? Because I want history is revision, right? Yeah, that's what they always say, right? A revision is history. Well, guess what? When we built the stadium that first year, nobody expected the Titans to go to the Super Bowl, including myself, and they did, and we did. And so, as the team moved forward during that time when we felt like we were at home and we had support, a little different situation instead of moving from stadium to stadium, from Memphis to Vanderbilt. But anytime you get in a new stadium, there's a lot of new excitement. So I'm hoping that times up perfectly, and hopefully Will Levis is where he needs to be as a quarterback, and everybody's happy and moving forward. And, they're making plays and putting up 30 points a game, and they're stuffing guys on defense, because this defense is going to be an attacking style now. It's going to be hit or miss, by the way. There are huge risks with this style of defense. So it concerns me a little bit, but that's how the league is. That's how we used to play. We could be dominating a game, but one big play, they're right back in it. So that's why you got to have stud corners. I think that's why I always talk about the back end to the front end. To me, it's always going to be the front end to the back end. But with his style, if you got some guys that can play man-to-man and relish that moment and love that challenge, play in and play out, then it probably is, because they're going to be out on that island. And it gets lonely out on that island now. So it's going to be interesting to see if Snead is ready to go, and how much they manage him, I think, is going to be key, because he is super talented. I remember watching him at Louisiana Tech when he was coming out, and man, he played safety, nickel, corner. I'm fascinated that he's turned into this good of a corner, because when I watched him, I used to say, when he was coming out, I don't know about his deep end speed. That was always going to be a concern in my mind when I watched him. Everything else he had, he was tough, he was physical, and he had dog, and he liked being challenged. He liked to challenge the receiver. So that's worked well, and he's improved naturally a lot since that time. Louisiana Tech, they had 2 guys that got drafted. Him, I think, in the 4th round, and the other guy went 3rd round to the Raiders, shorter guy, 5'9". So they had 2 really good corners. So I'm excited they got him, but I'm more nervous about him and how much he practices than I am about Sweat. I think that's going to play itself out eventually, but we don't know what we don't know, and he hasn't shown on the field. So that is a little more concerning, and what's going on with him. And we know they're going to manage his knee, but did he have surgery, or is he just resting, just watching? Where are we at with Snead? I have no idea. Then he said he didn't have any clause in his contract, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that,
he keeps telling us he's healthy.
Yeah, I wonder if that's the thing that we just won't know until the games kick off, right?
And I do not want to wait to a game. He's got to get out there and practice. Well, I'm talking about consecutive days in training camp.
A lot of
guys, it's a different version of it, but kind of the same that we used to talk about with Julio. He had to find ways to string together to sustain, to find out whether it was going to be tenable to have him on the field.
Reason why that was different, though? What year was Julio? What year is Snead?
Yeah, that's true.
That's why it's a little more concerning. That in a same situation, different points of their career. Snead is on the tick up, supposedly.
28.
Right. He's supposed to be on the tick up. Julio was on the tick down. So it was pretty clear. So that's a little concerning. So I want to see, because guess what? It's going to come back to Rand if this don't work out.
A lot of the corners that have been getting work in, of all the UDFAs the Titans picked up, I mean, Buck, you've been out there. I've seen this name pop up consistently. I've seen Teron Davenport comment on it, Jim Wyatt, to the point where Denard Wilson's asked about him, and that's Gabe Judy-Lawley.
Yep.
The UDFA corner, former Vandy.
Dorr and Ball.
Former Dorr, Cougar, and Vol.
Right,
and
BYU.
now Tennessee Titans.
Identity crisis.
Yes, he had a little pit stop there at BYU. But his name's come up a lot, and I'm just curious. You weren't undrafted, but as a young guy trying to kind of just stick in your first off-season workout, like Gabe Judy-Lawley is, in a deep room, one of the more improved rooms on the roster at corner, just what's his process this week? What does the mindset have to be when you look around you and you see L'Jarius Sneed and Cheeto Awuzie and Roger McCreary and all these guys that you figure Caleb Farley, the former first-round pick, and then you're just trying to make a name for yourself? Like, what kind of approach do you have to have? Why do you think Gabe Giulilali has turned some heads this week?
Well, naturally, he's talented. I thought he was going to be a late drafted player, and I was a late drafted player. Late drafted players, I was 214 pick. And, you know, UDFAs now are kind of mixed and mingled. It's all about preference. So I'm sure, you know, some of those guys should have got drafted. It's just not enough spots. So, and that seems as though that's him. You watched him at Tennessee. That's when I watched him a lot because we're watching a lot of ball games. I thought he was very talented. He's aggressive. Probably not as athletic as Taylor, probably not as fast, but he's technically sound.
As Alontae Taylor,
yeah, that's what I'm comparing him to, because they're somewhat similar in size with their length, and length is always good. Just not sure how athletic he is, but he's a good player. I think you ask veterans all the time, make sure study your playbook. Let's start there. But then you're trying to, learn everything you can from the vets of the tricks of the trades of how to cheat the code. There's a code at every position and how you can cheat it and where you're supposed to have your eyes and when can you cheat. And sometimes guys will divulge that information. They're slow to tell you because some guys, like myself, I would wait and see if actually you're going to be on the roster. I can't give you my cheat codes. You're not even going to be on the roster. And I wanted to believe everybody had a shot because I was kind of somewhat that guy. And so you got to have somewhat of a chip on your shoulder in a different version when you're a corner because you get a little too aggressive. You got to watch yourself. But I think you got to say, I have nothing to lose and everything to gain. That's kind of the approach, especially at corner. And you approach it that way, and you're going to have some good days and bad plays and, bad days, but you got to be able to respond to that. And I'm real big on that is when you have a bad day, when you fail, it really tells me who you are if I'm coaching you. If you have a bad day, how you respond to that bad day. Because everybody's going to have failures in life, and it shows out on the sports and football field, but it's really how you respond to those failures determine who you really are. And that's what I want to see when he has a bad day. And we got to see the pads on. He's looked good out there now. But, naturally when you get the pads on, then you get to really see. Because D-Hop and some of those guys are probably going, 3/4 speed. They're not giving all the goods out there, trust me. So that's what I'd be looking for. But he has been pretty good. I know a lot of you guys talking about him who's been out there on a daily basis. But I haven't watched him closely, so I can't wait to training camp just to see if he is as good, because I thought he should have been a drafted player. So I thought he had a shot at making the team right off the bat.
Do you know that you sitting down here was the first time that this has sounded like a professional radio show all day?
What's that?
Playing all day.
Refreshing.
I'm so exhausted.
Well,
all day. One segment. Thank you for doing this.
I did listen to you guys in the beginning, right off the bat. And what did you complain about at the beginning?
Everything, all of it. Kirby and Lucas is ruining my mood as soon as I sat down
at this point. So easy to tune out.
Unbelievable.
Oh, man. So I would love to see you on the football field when the crowd starts yelling your name, Buck, Buck, and then you look over and then they hike the ball.
That's exactly how it would go. Blaine Bishop, what do you and B-Hop got today?
Oh, man, I don't know, Biggity B. What we got today?
Hopkins.
Brad, what we got
What's
today?
on the radio show today? Baseball.
Oh, yeah. Ben McKee is coming on.
Ben McKee.
To talk about the Vols, and hopefully they stay focused. Seems like they will. They're kind of mature team this year.
I'm rooting for a loss today. I'm at Evansville Purple Aces playing.
No. Oh, yeah. I forgot. I know you're from there and everything. Everybody knows you're from Evansville. The pride of Evansville right here, right?
Yeah, no, it's me and Don Mattingly.
They have a veteran-laden team, a lot of seniors, a redshirt seniors, so you always got to be careful. Baseball is a weird sport, so you better bring your best, so I'm hoping they do.
Well, they bring their best from...
Not the Aces, though.
Not today.
Maybe
I'm talking about the Vols.
Maybe the Aces. Brad Hopkins and Blaine Bishop. They always bring their best from 1 to 3. You can hear them right here at Greystone Golf Club after we wrap up today. Hitman, thank you so much.
Appreciate it, guys, man. Thanks for having me.
That's Blaine Bishop hanging out with us. The polls are next. Last call for phone calls, 615-737-1045. I'm Buck Rising. It's 1045 The Zone. Means it's the end of the radio show, the end of the week for us, but the entertainment is not yet done. Like I said, you got B-Hop, you got the Hitman, Brad Hopkins and Blaine Bishop after us. 3HL will do a wellness check on Brent and Slay. I know Brent is out there on the golf course. Speaking of wellness check, you seen Bert? I think he's absconded with a golf cart. I think he's loose on the course at Greystone.
Oh my God! I see him driving on the 10th green. Somebody get that man. He slipped the cart.
I don't want to say that I wish that would happen because I don't.
We would never.
I don't actually want to wish harm upon him, but it's tempting. We're broadcasting here at Greystone for the 2024 Golf Classic presented by Ferguson and State Water Heaters. Special thanks to all the people who've made it possible today. Uncle Bud's, Whataburger, Ty Hassan, and Famous Dave's, who are providing the food throughout the course of the morning into the afternoon and evening, with 3HL wrapping up on the course out here at 6. It's always a great time out here at Greystone.
Beautiful day. Not a cloud in the sky.
No, and not humid. Not miserably humid.
Nice
so if you're
breeze.
doing the CMA Fest thing tonight, as I know many of you did last night and have all week long, this is, I don't think you could pick better conditions to brave the insanity that is downtown Nashville this weekend, because I could hear it from my house in Germantown. It is rocking last night at Nissan.
Shout out Fight DMD, always out here at this event. Terry Marlin and his whole family.
Good
You've
to see
heard
him.
their story on this station many, many times. Go to fightdmd.com if you haven't heard their story. It is incredible and kind of gives you an opportunity to learn more about DMD and how many families are dealing with it and how you can help.
Jackson, have you become less scared throughout the course of the broadcast today, or are you still back there in fear?
Yeah, because you guys haven't dropped since the first segment.
Excellent.
Not till the job is done. Job's not done, Kobe Bryant once said.
So what are you Derrick Henry and J.C. Latham citing Kobe Bryant quotes up there on the podium on a regular basis?
Kobe Bryant, my Italian brother. Favorite basketball player of all time.
Okay,
He grew up in Italy. Did you know that?
Shut up. It's like calling Mike Tirico your Italian brother. All right, can you give me some polls before we embarrass ourselves here? Yeah.
On his way home, she thought they were going to be late. She goes, "Better hurry." She said, "Your dad didn't drive the speed limit, I'm driving the speed limit."
You don't get to tell me I can't pack up early, Jackson. Get out of my ear.
Polls are presented by Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer. What was the most positive story you've seen in sports this week? Friday Fire, each and every Friday. Eldon is talking about Caleb Farley, as is Bryant. Just seeing him back on the practice field, talking about overcoming the things that he has dealt with. It is a positive thing to see Caleb Farley out there and with an eye towards the cornerback competition.
Yeah, you root for that human being. Absolutely. No matter what your allegiance are, whether you're fan, media, player, teammate, coach, Caleb Farley has been through hell and back and continues to persevere, to his credit. So we'll see how that plays itself out with one more week of OTA work next week, and then with training camp right around the corner.
Andrew says, I dropped a 25-pound weight on my toe at the gym, and it's not broken. So congratulations, Andrew.
Oh, that toenail is for sure gone, though.
Jeffrey.
There's no way that he's getting out scot-free there.
Jeffrey says his Friday Fire is USA beating Pakistan in cricket. He says our best player works for Oracle. This would be like Pakistan beating us in American football. It really would. It'd be like Pakistan beating the U.S. in basketball or something.
No, truly. So Pakistan can eat it. USA, USA, USA.
Vols fans, what is your BVS level for Super Regionals against Evansville? 40% say not worried. 31% say moderate battered Vols syndrome. 29% say it's extremely high.
29% say extremely high?
Extremely high. But 40% say not worried.
Your people are truly a tortured people.
Damaged.
You Vols fans.
Slightly damaged.
Your battered Vols syndrome, it permeates everything.
I don't know.
How are you this scared of the Evansville Purple Aces?
I don't know if it permeates through baseball that much. I really don't. At what point would you be worried about Titans rookie defensive tackle T'Vondre Sweat not practicing? 56% say they will not be worried until the start of training camp. 19% say not worried at all. 14% say they're worried now. 11% say they will not be worried until the start of the season. And if he's not out there.
No, training camp feels fair.
Brian Callahan's given us that expectation.
Well, he said maybe next week, for sure by training camp. That was what Brian Callahan said to the media on Tuesday. So if from 7 weeks from now, if whatever's keeping him off the field is still keeping him off the field, then yeah, big old red flag.
Yeah, we're going to hear from Callahan one more time, right, next week before we launch into the offseason.
Tuesday, June the 11th will be the last day of the Titans offseason program, and then we will all scatter to the wind for the next 6 weeks in the football barren wasteland that is the summer.
Are the LA Chargers contenders or pretenders? 87% say pretenders.
You believe them to be pretenders?
No, Jim Harbaugh's such a wild card that I'm not going to sit here and just rule it all out and just say there's no way that they could fall into contention for a Super Bowl because Jim Harbaugh is an evil scientist, and I can see it. So I will not say pretenders.
What's evil about Jim Harbaugh?
Or a mad scientist, excuse me, not an evil scientist.
Other than his fashion sense, that's
Ohio
the only
State
thing
fans,
that's evil
Kirby
about
thinks he's
Jim
evil.
Harbaugh. Well, Kirby's bitter. Just bitter. That's all it is. It doesn't matter the context. He's just bitter.
Those are the polls.
That's the show. Kirby Allen Kirby is always good to make these things happen. Jackson is a soldier for bearing with us back there in the studio. Thanks to everybody who puts on the 104.5 The Zone 2024 Golf Classic. We appreciate you. Presented by Ferguson and State Water Heaters today at Greystone Golf Club. Have an excellent weekend. I know you will, because Brad Hopkins and Blaine Bishop are going to get you a little closer to it coming up next.